to do.
Do we need to do it again?
As long as he said
I'm
one
okay.
of the numbers, it's probably fine.
I was
Yeah.
like 6.
Okay, Chris, let me know when we're good.
We're good, bitch.
Oh my god. Okay, here we go. Man, we've done this so many times.
We have.
It's episode 200 of The Platformers,
Beep, 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 beep.
a show about games and
Beep, beep,
nerd
beep, beep.
culture. I am your host, Brian Barnett.
I'm Josh Mobley.
Sega! I'm Chris Shriver.
I'm Sam Adams.
Welcome back, Sam.
The beer?
So yeah, the beer, dude. I am so glad to be here celebrating 200 episodes with you guys. It's not. How does it feel? Let me flip it on you. How does it feel to do 200
Doesn't
episodes?
feel real. Although I haven't been here for all 200. I've been here for like 60 or 70, so.
I feel very old. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I've just seen a lot of shit, and I've done a lot of shit.
Yeah.
You know?
It's been we should probably reflect a little bit on how long it's, because there have been several phases.
It's been years, like
It's
almost
literally
4
been-
years.
It's been
Four-ish
it's
years.
been 5 years.
It's been 5
It's
years.
been 5 years. I counted.
Yeah.
The first episode went up July 23rd, 2016.
Oof.
And it was episode 2, Poke Doom Watch.
Yes.
Because we recorded episode 1 and it didn't really work. It had a different cast. There was actually an episode 0. You know what? This episode 200 is a pretty good episode to do kind of a little history lesson. So the absolute first version of this podcast, episode 0, as I will call it, was an episode with myself, my wife Audrey, and her brother AJ. And we recorded an episode of that a long time ago.
Right.
It was the same kind of format and that sort of a thing, but it didn't really work. And then after we met, we actually met, Josh and I met through the Kind of Funny community. We've talked about this fairly recently. We met through the Kind of Funny community and we played Destiny together. And then Josh, we kind of linked up at Kind of Funny Live 2, where and we went to the what was it, the food truck?
Fuck
Yeah,
yeah,
it
it
was,
was. There was a food truck festival, and they had,
Yeah.
like, traveling, I don't know, Indian food, and a guy talked to me about how he, like, loved Fallout 2, and he's, like, the #1 player in it in the world, and I was like, I don't think that game has online rankings. And then we, like...
On my personal list that I've been keeping on this notepad next
He's
to my
like,
desk, I'm
no
the
one has
#1
ever-
player in the world.
That's
No
what
one
he
told
said.
me otherwise. So.
Yeah, he's like, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then it was you guys. It was Harvey. Yeah, there was
Marty?
Marty. Yeah,
Harvey
Marty.
and I ate,
One of the OGs.
Harvey and I ate a grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yes,
And it was freaking amazing.
I remember
Yeah.
eating
Loved it.
street corn, and then that's when I fell in love with street corn.
Heck yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so then we were talking, and I had been just talking all the time, talking Audrey's ear off about games, and I was like, man, I was listening to podcasts all the time then, and I was like, man, I would love to do this, and she's like, just do it.
She's like, do it. Get out
and
of
I was
my
like-
ear.
I was like, I mean, yeah, basically. And so I reached out to Josh and Chris and Marty at the time, and Josh's cousin Matt, and we tried it out. But like logistically, recording didn't quite work out, and so we had to kind of retool some things. And then I think it ended up being myself and Chris and Marty at first.
Mhm.
That was it for like probably 50 or so episodes. Like that probably went
Yeah.
on for about a year.
Yeah. It was the three of us. It was myself, Chris, and Marty. And then Marty had a lot of stuff going on, and so he had to step away. And then what was it then that Josh filled in?
Josh came in, then Wolf came in for a little bit, and then I stepped away because that was when I was coaching esports for a while. That was like
It was
around,
just too much. Yeah.
that was around like the 125 mark. And and then you did the solo thing for a little while, and we kind of took a hiatus.
I never really did it solo, but it was definitely like for a while it was me and then Josh as often as he could spare some time.
Yeah.
And it went away from we weren't able to do it every week. We went to as often as we could. And then you came back and we kicked it back into high gear.
The pandemic hit, and I was like, I got nothing better to do.
Yeah, and then we've been going strong ever since.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a long ride. We've had some incredible guests over time. We've had my wife Audrey on for some spoiler casts. We've had Ronnie Barrier on for the Obra Dinn spoiler cast. We've had Devin and a bunch of people on our Last of Us Part 2 spoiler cast. We had Janet Garcia on an episode about indie games. We've had
B. Hunt, Joe Deegan, Mitch Saltzman.
Who I keep missing.
Yeah.
No, he missed me. All right.
Yeah. Mitch was unable to make this episode because of some personal things, but Sam was able to step up and help us out, and we really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So this week we are celebrating 200 episodes. For the past 4 weeks, we've been celebrating our top 20 games of all time. And now on episode 200, it's time for the top 5. Our top 5 favorite games ever made, and we're going to dive into why we love them so much, what makes them so great, and more. But first, I have a very, very important question for all of you. Is this too much?
Yeah,
this is going
too deep.
It's
too deep.
This V is powerful.
You know what it needs?
It is a powerful V.
It needs one of the, and I don't know that. I
feel good.
Culturally appropriate term, but I always call it a wife beater, which is not what you're supposed to call it.
Is that what that's called?
Just call it a tank top.
I guess a tank top, right? I would put a tank top under that.
Or an undershirt. There are so many other phrases you can use.
Mum Jum also thinks it's too deep.
Okay. All right.
When I joined the call, the first thing I
deep
noticed
as you
was
want.
like, that's a lot of chest. Like, as soon as I joined the call, that's a lot of skin showing.
Okay, how is that?
I'll allow it.
How is that? Is that better?
You do whatever you want, bud.
I mean, if I had my way, I'd just take the whole thing off,
Sam, is this mug?
Yeah, but then you wouldn't be able to be on Twitch.
Is this mug branded that you've got here, or is this just like the classiest mug I've ever seen?
Honestly, there's no brand on it. My girlfriend bought it for me at Marshall's, and it's just got a cork bottom on it, so when you set it down, it makes no noise.
Yep.
Perfect for podcasting.
That's cool.
It's got a little bottom. Yeah, it's very nice. I drink coffee in it throughout the day, so it's a trooper. Very good.
Have a Last of Us mug just
bottom.
like that with the cork bottom, and like now every other mug that I use, I just want to get rid of it.
No, it's so good, dude. Yeah, very good.
I'm glad that flew under the radar, but Josh got
Nope,
it.
I heard it. I'm writing it down. I wish I had a cork bottom. All right.
See what you don't. I heard it, but I didn't say
We're
anything.
just adults here. That's
yeah. Hey, you know what? I appreciate it. So let's get the rotation. Let's go. I will go, then Chris will go, then Josh will go, then Sam will go, and then we'll loop back around again. Shall we get started?
Sure.
Let's do it.
My 5th favorite game of all time is Pokemon Yellow /Red/Blue.
No.
No?
No.
What do you mean no?
You don't get to do that with yellow.
I don't get to do that with
You're
yellow?
gonna say red/blue, I'll allow it. Yellow, it's a little different. You get your Pikachu in the beginning. He makes faces at you.
It is, but
Okay. Well,
it's basically a modded version of
I'm
Blue.
just fucking with you. It's fine.
So if I had to pick the one that was really the most nostalgic and most meaningful, I would have to go with red or blue.
That's what you should pick.
But the thing is, yellow is just like we've been talking about with the remasters, like we've been talking about with why pick Super Mario World when you can pick Super Mario World plus Mario All-Stars.
Plus Mario All-Stars, because you get
It's the most complete version of those games.
Yellow is just the best version of that game.
Yeah.
It is the game that you can play solo and get Charizard, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle in it, which is like what I did in all of those games. Like I would just trade my friend and then start the game over until I had all 3 starters, and that's the way I wanted to play through it.
Yeah.
Because that just felt like the best way to do it. And with yellow, you just do that.
Let's go around real quick. What's your starter? What's your number 1 here, Bri?
Oh, I've gone through some phases.
Bulbasaur. It's always been Bulbasaur.
I started as a Charmander dude.
Mm-hmm.
That tracks.
But over time, I have really grown to appreciate the other starters far more, and I really do like Bulbasaur a lot now. I'm never not gonna get Charizard in a game where I can only pick one.
Yeah.
So like in the later games, like in Y and stuff, like you could get when they introduced Mega Evolution, they're like, yo, you can pick a version of these Pokemon and then super evolve them into these crazy versions. And of course, I picked Charizard Y because he's just super Charizard. Like he doesn't change, he's just better at everything he does.
Yeah.
He's a special sweeper, which is for competitive players or people who are familiar with like the types. That is like the type that I used all the time. I basically just made a team of special sweepers. Super fast, super high attack in whatever they did, and then just switch and exploit weaknesses all day long. So if I had to pick one, it would probably be Charmander. But I pick Bulbasaur way more now.
Yeah.
So
Sam, what about you?
See, I was never a big Pokemon guy growing up. Like I never did any of the mainline games, and I would pick it up when my friends picked it up and kind of play it for a little while. If I was picking a starter, it was always going to be Charizard, just because fire. Like that's me, you know. But I don't have any kind of intricate backstory of the way that it plays or like favorites and stuff. I like fire. I'm a caveman. I like fire. You know, very very simple, very simple. That's all I have.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was always a Charmander kid and like Charizard. I thought Charmeleon sucked, but
Dude, Charmeleon is maybe my favorite name of a Pokemon like ever.
He has like the worst design out of all.
Actually, you know what? I take that back. Combuskin is so good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that being said, I live, with Jess Veazey, who there's a Bulbasaur in every room in this house, and that's like not a joke. So I feel like by design, I just have to fall in love with him. But like, there's a special place for Squirtle Squad for sure. That episode's just hilarious.
Squirtle Squad. That is, yeah, I remember. Yeah. All the sunglasses, they were all bullies.
Yeah.
And you said you were a Bulbasaur guy, Josh?
Oh yeah, always.
Fun fact, when I pick Bulbasaur, I actually don't evolve him because I don't like how the other evolutions look. I just like Bulbasaur.
You don't like big pile of...
I like big old Ivysaur.
Nah. So honestly, I would probably, if I was doing like my ideal thing, I would probably pick Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charizard. And just never evolve the two and only evolve the fucking dragon. Yeah, but that is it. That was that might have been my first RPG.
I think it was for a lot of people.
But like I was
Japanese RPG, yeah, I would say.
I was exposed to other things before that. I didn't play Pokemon until my family moved to California, but I was exposed to like Legend of Zelda 1 earlier than that, and maybe like the Final Fantasy games on Game Boy before that.
I was just gonna say, I think I may have played Final Fantasy VII before I played Pokemon.
Wow.
But
that's crazy.
I'm trying to remember when Pokemon came here, and I feel like it was like 99. But
yeah, it was back then. I feel like it came around 99, maybe a little bit earlier.
It was earlier than that, wasn't it?
I want to say
like
91
or 92.
Here's the weird thing about these games in particular is that they kind of like came out and then lived for way longer than most other games that come out. Like it was still in that era where and I don't know if this was just video games in general or if this was just because we were kids and like couldn't buy things on our own. But like I didn't get Pokemon Red and Yellow till the Game Boy Color was out. And I think I was like 4.
Yeah, same actually.
Yeah, like
I got a green Game Boy Color with Pokemon Blue.
My Game Boy Color was yellow.
Mine was green.
Mine was green.
Fuck yeah!
Wow,
Fuck you,
what?
Brian.
Mine was also it was that cool like lime green.
It was a key
Yeah.
lime.
But all citrus colors.
Mhm.
Citrus Squad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a fantastic game. A lot of people just straight up think Gold and Silver are better, but I never got into
think
Gold and
so.
Silver.
I think so. Because you get a whole game. You get you get the whole Gold and Silver game, and then when you beat that, they're like, "Hey, you want to go back to Red and Blue?" And they literally can play through like all the regions of Red and Blue again. Like it's like it has Red and Blue in it, basically.
That's the one that I've definitely played the most. Like, I don't even know if I've ever finished Heart Gold or Soul Silver, but like Pokemon Silver.
I've never played those ones.
Oh my god.
I played it back when it came out. I was playing Silver.
Yeah. That's definitely my favorite gen.
Yeah. I really do need to. I hope they do like fucking Turbo Gold and Supersonic Silver or whatever and like do it on Switch. Do it like real nice so that I don't have to play the freaking 3DS again.
I'm sure they will when they release a new version of the Switch.
Yeah. But yeah, that is Pokemon
One
Yellow
day.
/Blue/Red is my number 5.
Sick.
Number 5!
Bro.
The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Wow.
Yep.
There's a good video game.
That's one of the most recent games I think on our list so far.
I think it is the most recent game on my list, at least in my top 5.
The most recent one in on my list is Hades, but that was at number 11.
Yeah. I mean, Breath of the Wild. You know, it was one of those games that it got delayed so many times, and it was supposed to be a Wii U game. It was a Wii U game, but people tend to forget that.
People forget a lot about the Wii U.
Yeah, people forget a lot about the Wii U.
I forgot.
You
that
know
it was
what
on the
I
Wii
forget
U.
about it is that I own one.
Yeah,
I constantly forget I have one somewhere.
Yeah, it was such a great way to celebrate the launch of that system. And while there were games that like were available on the Switch at launch, we had Shovel Knight and things like that, but Breath of the Wild was the one that like it really sold people on. There's an episode of like the first weekend Brian and I have it where we're just like gushing and we're like, oh my god, this is like the Vita 2. Like this is everything we've ever wanted.
Yep.
Just thinking it was like everything but better.
It was literally for quite a while. The entire game industry was like, those sons of bitches actually did it.
Yeah.
I can't believe they did it.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an exciting. It was such an exciting time. And even for Sony to like put Horizon out in the same week. That was
nuts,
which was crazy. Like as this game and this, the Switch itself, and for it to just like
let's go fight dilapidated robots, automatons in a overgrown ancient ruin of society and piece together what happened while we weren't aware of it.
Yeah, no,
like,
both
games.
Not
both
that
games.
Not that Horizon, is a bad game, but I think Breath of the Wild didn't help it when it came out. It was one of those games that like everybody looked at and it was like, oh, this is how an open world game should be. And I think it broke a lot of open world games for people in a good way.
What's funny too is that like it's basically just in a lot of ways a remake of the very first Zelda game.
Yeah.
Which is really funny that like that pattern seems to work now.
And another thing that I think that at least I give The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild a lot of credit for is it sidesteps the issue that a lot of open world games, particularly lately, have gotten into, which is the open world game being really linear and level gating you behind different things.
I hate
you
that.
can literally go from the beginning of the game, get the kite, and then go to the end if you want.
Yeah.
And if you are good enough, you can do it. Like, you can beat the game then. And in a world of, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where they're like, nah, you can't progress the main story yet. Go do some other shit until you're a high enough level to unlock this. Which literally made me quit the game. Breath of the Wild is like, hey, guess what?
Go at your own pace.
If you can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
Which is how I want basically all of my games to be.
Yeah.
That's the way Dark Souls is. That's the way that Metroid is. That's the way that all of these other, incredible experiences are. And to have Zelda just highlight, hey, we're going to plop you down in this world and you figure it out. If you want to go check out all the shrines, that's what you do. If you want to go see all the Korok seeds and find them, do that. If you want to go help some dude build a house, you can do that, and just letting us go and dive into it on our own terms. That is something that so few modern game developers do. And it speaks to a level of confidence that Nintendo has. And I just admire the hell out of that.
Well, and it's also, it speaks volumes to the engine that game is built in, and the mechanics that, the openness of the mechanics in it, I should say.
My God, the people who were like, "Hey, check out what I just did."
Right, like they can fly on a plank, across the entire map with a cat and a balloon. Like, what the
speedrunners are nuts.
Yeah, it's one of the most fascinating games you can watch somebody play. That knows how to do it right.
It's the evolution of what happened with like Far Cry 2, where like one of the things was, hey, the grenade rolls down the hill. What?
Right, right.
Like,
what happens if I stand on it on
exactly
this thing? And
like, you get fire propagation, you get all of this stuff. It's nuts.
Yeah.
And they made everything work together in such an interesting way. Hey, what if I throw my sword at somebody during a lightning storm? Oh, it strikes them. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, so cool.
Yeah,
it's a cool game.
Whenever I was playing with stuff like that, it almost reminded me of Scribblenauts. I don't know if you guys ever played Scribblenauts, but like,
I did.
Like, you just randomly throw some word out there, and it works the way that you think it would. Like, you assume that it's So you just try something, and like you said, where you throw a sword and the lightning strikes, and you're just like, wow, that shit worked. Cool, That's what I love. I loved Breath of the Wild so much that after I sold my day one Switch, I kept Breath of the Wild because I knew that eventually I'd come back and buy another Switch. and here I am with a Switch Lite playing Breath of the Wild on it. Like, it's that good that I kept it. Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for picking up the Switch OLED and after the wedding and checking that game out again. There's a lot of the DLC I didn't really get that far into, mostly because it's like super difficult and I need to remember how to like play that game. And the mechanics of it and all, but I'm sure it looks fantastic on there. But yeah,
can't wait for the sequel.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. I don't want to burn myself out on it before a sequel does come out. But all that being said, Breath of the Wild rips ass.
Rips.
There it is. There it is. It's like, when's it gonna happen?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask if this gets your Catch the Fever
Yo,
award.
Catch
but
the
clearly
fucking fever.
all of these. But all of these games
Get a
get
venereal
Catch the Fever
disease.
award.
My top
That's how
5
good
games
Breath
of
of the
all
Wild
time
is.
don't catch the fever at all.
Josh,
man.
what's your number 5 best game of all time?
Metal Gear Solid, the original one.
Convince me to play it.
Why
should I play Metal Gear Solid? I always said Breath.
Psycho
of the Wild.
Mantis.
Now my question is, you haven't played Metal Gear Solid?
I haven't.
I also haven't.
Okay.
Have you played any of the other Metal Gear games?
No, I played a little bit of 4 and that was it.
No, I don't.
4
like
is the worst one.
That's what
4
everyone
is
says.
4 is like the worst one. Yeah.
Have you
I don't
played
really
it,
like
Sam?
I didn't
five
play
either.
Acid. I didn't play Acid or Portable Ops, so I don't know if those are worse. But 4 was definitely the one where I was like, you know what, AJ, you come over and beat this, and I'll just watch because I can't fucking stand this game. But yeah, Metal Gear Solid 1 is pretty good.
Metal Gear Solid 1 is like, it's just one of those games that it like changed everything. And it also is like, for a lot of people my age, and around my age. It was one of the first games where it had like full on voice acting on the PS1, by the way.
Yeah. Very impressive.
Had full on voice acting, and also it felt like adult. Not in like a weird sexual way, but it felt like it wasn't like talking down to you. It's talking about real. I blame it for
maybe
giving
a sexual way if you want.
Well, there are like innuendo and stuff later, but like, you know, like women have more hiding places than men. I'll never forget that line.
Wait, could you? That's incredible. Could you throw down porno mags to distract guards in 1?
I think that was a 2 thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, got hair in my mouth. But it was like I blame that game for giving me anxiety about nuclear weapons, because that's what that entire game is about.
My God.
And
blame 24 Season 2 for that, and 24 Season 3 for making me terrified of biological weapons.
Yeah. But I don't know what else to say. It's like groundbreaking on so many levels, and I know when you play it now, it feels kind of like clunky and stuff, but it's just when you consider like when it came out and the time, and then like the story, I think even today is still really good. It's like what if Splinter Cell but anime, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very accurate.
No one's ever explained it to me.
You gotta write that one down.
Yeah.
You gotta write that one down.
But
Edgar Allan Bro in the chat is saying Twin Snakes is better though.
The GameCube remake. Yeah,
it's a preference thing. I actually like Twin Snakes. There's a lot of purist people that don't, because they change.
They changed one of the boss fights, don't they? Or it's like ridiculously easy. There's some sniping one. That's what.
It's the sniper wolf.
The Revolver Ocelot fight in first person is like a joke.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, whatever. I like Twin Snakes. I actually probably played that just as much as I played the original one on PS1.
Actually, you know what? I may have only played Twin Snakes. I didn't do.
Twin Snakes is perfectly fine. Don't listen to people that are like, oh, it ruins it, because it's the same. It's the same game. They just add in stuff from like Metal Gear Solid 2, like control wise and just some other things, and then also it just and then it also just looks better.
Yeah.
And I believe it uses all the same voice actors. I don't even know if they re-recorded the lines or not. I have no idea. But Twin Snakes is good. I'm a defender of Twin Snakes, and I think if you've never played the game, that might actually be the best way to play it.
Yeah.
Is just playing Twin Snakes.
I may do that.
Also, it's a very short game. I think like your first playthrough will probably be like 8 hours maybe. I had that game down to about like 5 at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fairly short.
Yeah, it's short. And it's great. And yeah. Hands down, it's amazing. I wish that the newer ones like 4 and 5 were as good, but I just don't I don't like them as much, unfortunately.
I really, really loved 5. I think 2 and 3 might still be my favorites, but man, I loved what 5 did, but it was very different than what 1 was trying to do. So yeah. But yeah, that's your number 5?
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, I remember playing the prologue to 5 that came out. Ground Zeroes. Yeah. So I played through that repetitively, like on repeat for probably 2 weeks, just really grinding through that. And then I got 5. I think it was a PlayStation Plus game at some point, and I played through a good chunk of that. But in terms of Metal Gear, like I get what they're trying to do with it, and I should go back and probably play one of those at some point. But yeah, it's cool. Number 5.
The great thing about Metal Gear Solid 5, not to get on too much of a tangent, is that it basically did what Metal Gear was trying to do, and the same things that like games like Far Cry also do, where it was like taking over bases and stuff, which Metal Gear was never about. Metal Gear has always been like really linear, but Metal Gear 5 was like, hey, what if you were on a sneaking mission, but you were also doing like Far Cry stuff and taking over bases and earning resources and stuff.
Yeah,
and I liked that a lot.
I don't like that, because to me it felt like in the end it just felt like the open world was a big loading screen. Like I was essentially just walking from like level 1 to level 2. I wasn't actually like I don't know. And that's one of my big complaints about open world games in general, is I'm sort of just like, we could just be getting to the point, but you've put all of these weird little distractions you've sprinkled out throughout the world that aren't all that interesting most of the time.
Yeah.
And like, I have to sit here and deal with that, you know. I don't know. Maybe I'm a curmudgeon, but that's just how I feel about that usually.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong, but Metal Gear Solid 1 was a very focused experience.
Oh yeah.
Which kind of contrasts to a lot of that modern game design. Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Sam?
My number 5 is going to be Super Mario Galaxy.
Yes.
I fell in love with this game on the Wii, and I played it religiously through and through. And then recently I went back and I picked up the All-Star bundle on the Switch, and I got back into Galaxy once again, and it still is a hallmark of 3D platforming in a way that no other game has really hit for me. The way that gravity is used, the way that the planets add variety, the different systems you go to, it adds just enough of everything that I need to keep me continually coming back. And then I can also dive in and just play for a while. And it doesn't really keep me for longer than I want to be there. It's very welcoming. And I think that's big, especially as somebody who, schedule's super packed like everybody is these days. And to be able to just pick up the Switch and go and hit a solar system and be done in 20 minutes, if you know what you're doing and kind of really play through it. Super good time, but for all of those reasons. And then on top of that, it's just gorgeous. Like, it's just a really pretty game. I think Chris and I were talking, that's one that I'd want to play on the OLED, where it's just like Super Mario Galaxy would pop on that OLED screen. But it's just phenomenal through and through. One of my favorite 3D platformers, period.
You're playing it on the Lite, right?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, there's something about that game in handheld mode that is just like so good. And what's funny, and I've complained like time and time again on the show, but that port with like a Pro controller or the Joy-Con, like it just does not feel good. But handheld, it oddly feels like it was made for that.
Yeah.
Or it's probably like
Which
the
it
second.
Clearly was not.
It wasn't, but like it's the second. I think it's the second best way to play that game. The first being like on the original hardware or like through Dolphin. With a Wiimote and Nunchuck. But yeah, playing that game like in bed, even if like it's just popping in for a little bit, it's a Mario game. It's the same thing as 3D World and Odyssey. It feels really good. Like you said, it feels natural on the Switch Lite because you can tell that it's very much still a game designed around the idea of motion control. Like that's what it is. That's what it was always meant to be. But even just like collecting star bits, you just touch the screen where you want to collect the star bits in handheld mode, and it acts like you're aiming the Wiimote at the screen, and it works flawlessly. Like it's great, and it's not unnatural. Whenever I'm trying to move from the right analog stick and like touch the screen and gather stuff up, it feels perfect. So I was shocked, but still just a top 5 by all means. It's great. Great pick.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Which brings us to number 4. My number 4 best game of all time is Final Fantasy Tactics: The War of the Lions.
One of my blind spots in Final Fantasy.
This is the tactics game to which all other tactics games are measured against. And if that sentence was a little bit wonky, it's because I've had 80% of this cup that was half Zubrovka vodka and half apple juice. So a little bit soused. But Final Fantasy Tactics is incredible. And what the War of the Lions did was it basically introduced a couple of classes that were not in the original. It is the PSP version as well, which was also playable on Vita. It let you play as the Dark Knight class, which was the class that I really wanted to be, or like the Holy Knight class that all the most badass characters in Final Fantasy Tactics were, like Gafgarian or Agrius or Sidolphus Orlandu, who is the fucking most overpowered character.
You are just saying names, man.
Those are words.
Yeah, dude, Orlandu is like, just so you know how powerful Orlandu is, people say like This game is one thing. If you are playing with him on your team, it is you trivialize the entire rest of the game if you use him on your team. Because his sword Excalibur has haste on it. He's got every ability. He can attack people all over the place. It's amazing. Anyway, you can be a holy knight in the War of the Lions version, and it's got like other improvements and other like updated translation on stuff, like updated names for things. This the reason why I am so into Disgaea is because of Final Fantasy Tactics, which got me into grid-based, turn-based tactics games. But unlike Disgaea, where the emphasis is on spectacle and huge numbers and bombast, Final Fantasy Tactics is about darkness and difficult decisions and dealing with loss and disaster and all sorts of things like this. Your characters die, and then if you don't go and revive them in a certain number of turns, they turn into a crystal, and then you can go over to their body and pick up the crystal to either be healed or absorb some of their abilities into yourself, and things like this. It tells a very dark kind of political intrigue story. It's very intense. It's also super duper fun. And it has one of the best implementations of the job system from Final Fantasy, which is one of my favorite systems that Final Fantasy introduced. Going through the game, you get job points and you level those up, and you gain abilities and you equip those abilities, and then you switch to different classes, and you can combine your equipped class and like some subclass to like fantastic effect. You can be a summoner and a time mage to speed up your summons, which are really powerful abilities, but they take a while to hit. And it also was the way that they kickstarted the world of Ivalice, which is a world that they revisited with Final Fantasy XII and Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and Advance A2 Grimoire of the Rift. It is, I think, maybe the best that Final Fantasy... Oof.
What are you about to say?
It is some of the best that Final Fantasy has ever been.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people grabbed onto Final Fantasy VII, which came out before this, and actually Cloud is a character that you can acquire in this game. And you use this machine, and he's teleported in from another space and time. But it is such a fantastic experience, such a challenge, in a way that like modern tactics games kind of... I find that modern tactics games, whether you're looking at something like Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark or Disgaea or, whatever, Fire Emblem or XCOM, these games really have a hard time nailing both fun and challenge. And I think that some games like Disgaea kind of ease off of the challenge quite a bit for fun. And games like XCOM actually are not that fun because they're too hard. Or they kind of, there's that meme about like, 99% accurate on this next hit, don't bet on it. Like, because, XCOM, you'll have a 99% chance to hit and you'll fucking miss. But Final Fantasy Tactics really nailed that balance. It was really, really fun and really satisfying and still challenging. And I think that it really nailed the story of a forgotten hero or a forgotten chapter in history. And it had a lot of atmosphere. It had a lot of flavor and a lot of character. And it's a dark story. Like it is kind of shades of Game of Thrones far before that was a thing.
Why do you think they've never made another one? Like
they've made two of them.
They've made others. They just don't really.
They don't hold a candle.
It must be market research and stuff, honestly.
Oh wow.
These games don't sell that well compared to the main things. Critically, they're lauded to all hell.
Like it seems like one of those games that like we haven't seen one in so long that like almost like a Metroid Dread. Like they would just be like, yeah it's been 15 years or whatever. Like the time.
I think the reason is similar to Metroid in that like. Yes, games like Super Metroid are incredibly lauded, but they don't sell that well. And, Metroid Dread, recently came out and is selling very well. It's already the best-selling entry in the series, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
But these tactics games don't. Yeah, I noticed that, and I wanted to bring that up. Sam is pointing to in the background where he's actually got the physical Nintendo Switch case for Metroid Dread, which is a game that is sweeping the nation and the world, and rightfully so. But I think that even though these games typically score incredibly well, they just don't sell that well. Like Dishonored, like there are many games that review very well that just don't make a lot of money for whatever reason, and they Square has just found that they do a lot better with making mainline Final Fantasy games other than making these tactics games. But they made Final Fantasy Tactics Advance for the Game Boy Advance, and then they made Tactics Advance 2 or Tactics Advance A2 Grimoire of the Rift for DS. And both of those games are kind of what I was looking for, but they have such a light tone, and that's not what Tactics really did. They are much more like mainstream Final Fantasy games in their kind of Final Fantasy X-like kind of light, adventurous kind of spirit, or like 9 or something like that. They really don't get gritty like they did in Tactics, but...
Edgar Allan Bro says, look, they just need to take a page out of Nintendo's book and add waifus like Fire Emblem.
And add what?
Name. Add waifus like Fire Emblem.
Waifus and husbandos.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could date people in Final Fantasy Tactics, I feel like that would be a huge betrayal of the spirit of that game, but I'd also still play it. Also, hey,
yeah, because it would be a new Final Fantasy Tactics, so you'd almost be like required by law.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to have you in the stream, Will. Thanks for coming by.
You think I'm joking, but Awakening saved the series largely because of stuff like that. Hi, Brian.
Fun fact, Awakening was the first Fire Emblem game I ever played, and
I've still never played a Fire Emblem game.
Me either.
I've played every one since then. So they did do it. They did it.
They got you in.
Square should do it too. Yeah. I would love Final Fantasy Tactics 2. That would be amazing. Now that we've gotten a new Metroid game in the Super Metroid lineage, my next one is give me fucking Final Fantasy Tactics 2. That's going to be my next thing that I'm going for. But anyway, all of that said, that is why Final Fantasy Tactics is my number, specifically Final Fantasy Tactics The War of the Lions is my 4th top game of all time.
Nice. My number 4 is Portal 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was my number 19.
Yeah. Portal 2, the writing in it is just fucking hilarious.
Dear God, I am tipsy.
Oh wow. It has I think some of the most surprising and funniest moments of like any video game ever. As Brian said in his episode or his recounting of it, one of the best achievements ever where it's like, did that really just happen? And then the achievement pops and it says, yes, that really did just happen. It takes everything.
Wheatley is great. Stephen Merchant.
Yeah, Stephen Merchant's in it. The expansion of just all the mechanics that are in Portal 1. And like it's one of those, Portal 1's being one of those games where, it's so short, but it's so tight and brilliant. And then I think 2, just really the way that it expands upon everything that the first one introduces. It's similar to the Last of Us 2 situation where it's like I didn't think they would be able to do it, and then they did. It also is amazing graphically.
The potato moment.
Yeah, the potato moment. Graphically, I think it's one of those games that just like holds up really well. It's one of the first games that like if it's whether I'm testing out a new GPU or a display or something like that, it's one of the first games I always fire up. Like when I get a Steam Deck, it'll probably be the first thing I install, just because I know it's optimized really well, and it's I'm sure it'll look great on that screen.
I'm on record as saying I think Portal is the best franchise that Valve has.
Yeah. I mean, Gabe Newell kind of agrees with you, other than Dota, because he just whips people to make that game. For him, but Portal being the one that he's like he didn't have a lot of involvement in it, So he just kind of gets to enjoy it for what it is. And he's like, wow, there are interviews of him where he's like, we did a good job at that. I'd love to see a sequel. I think some of the fan remakes are excellent. They're incredible.
Portal 3.
Yeah,
when?
I'd love a Portal 3. I really want Portal in VR, honestly. That's the one that I'm like really pushing.
That would be wild. Yeah. Like that needs to happen.
Yeah. I think it will eventually, but I think
I would give myself 5 minutes before I fall on the floor, just like totally face plant on the floor from complete disorientation. I've got vomit all over the carpet, just everywhere. I'm like, this is great.
The future is Yeah, that's like the one game when I first got my Quest 2, I like tried my damnedest to get it working, and it didn't. Nobody's like gotten that mod to work properly yet. But yeah, Portal 2 just fucking is awesome. It's a great game.
Yeah, that is a fantastic game. Yeah, that is one of those games that like I know that it was 19th on my list, but that is definitely one of those games where like I played it, I beat it, and I was like, that's a goddamn 10.
But that's out of every game you've ever played.
Yes,
right,
yes,
right.
Still high praise.
Yeah.
Yes. But I was like, I played that game. There was a period of time where I was like, God damn, like what the fuck? Portal 2, 10. Infamous 2, 10. Like there was just a period of time where I was like, man, whatever. Like I think it was like Borderlands 2, like Dishonored 2. Like there was just a stretch of time where like all the sequels to these games just like fucking nailed everything. And I was like, wow, you guys really did it. That is incredible.
Yeah.
And like as well beloved as Portal 1 is, and well deservedly so, like, man, Portal 2 they really did it. Like they really did it in such an impressive way.
And if you have a Series X, it is on back compat. They did optimize it for the Xbox One X, not the Series X, but
wow.
Yeah, the upgrades are very good. It's not as good as running it on a PC with like mods and shit, but it's definitely a good way to play it.
Also, wasn't that one of those games where, like, if you bought it on PS3, they gave you a key for the Steam version, so you have it on both?
And it had cross compatibility, which was
had cross play. Yeah,
that was so awesome.
What a different Sony.
Yeah,
that was back when Sony cared and was trying to make good decisions. Right before the fucking outage.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
the day of the outage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that because I was living with my friends at the time.
I remember getting Mortal Kombat 10 and Portal 2 on the same day.
Yep.
And then literally the next day, the great 30-day outage happened.
That was an insane time.
What a wild time.
I remember explaining that to like my boss at the restaurant that I worked at. And he was like, why is everybody like freaking out on the internet about PlayStation? I was like, the whole thing is down. He's like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
like,
been down.
We can't.
PlayStation
is
down.
Yeah.
It was insane. It was that period of time. I think I was in early high school at the time, and it was like I was probably actually in middle school now that I think about it. But everybody at that time was playing Call of Duty. Like that was our thing.
Sam, you're a baby.
I am a child. But everybody was playing Call of Duty, and we literally what do we do now? What like I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with my time. Do I go outside? Fuck no.
All the mole people just step out like,
I can't go outside. The sun's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, within that period of time that it was down, I could have had a whole Prestige done. It was so much lost time. I was so disappointed.
But hey, you got Little Big Planet for free if that was what you chose.
Or
Dead Nation.
Yeah,
That's true.
It was games on PSP and on PS3. I remember that. They gave out everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a weird time. Could you imagine that happening now?
Oh
yes, I can imagine that happening
It would be terrible.
It would be.
Josh.
God. What are we talking about? That's right.
What's your number 4?
What are we talking about?
We're talking about our fucking favorite games of all time, Josh.
It was a long tangent.
It really was.
Diablo 3.
Nice.
I struggled, but although
mentioned before,
I will say I struggled to pick between 1, 2, or 3. Like nostalgia told me, pick 1 because I like just the vibe of 1. I love that Tristram theme, like all that stuff. 2 I also really love, but not as much as 1, but at the same time it's like really good. But then I think about like 3 and just how much time I've put in that game and how much
you and I have played a lot of Diablo 3 together.
God, dude. Yeah. And even like the season previous to this one, before all the Blizzard stuff happened, like my friends and I got in like deep into freaking Diablo 3, and we're just playing it like every day, like trying to min-max and stuff. Like,
yeah,
it's a magical little game, man. Little game, but it's
I think it's interesting that you were thinking about picking Diablo 1, because like Metal Gear Solid 1, it is a very much more focused experience than Diablo 3 is.
It's like just keep going lower and lower.
Yeah.
And then kill the devil, basically.
It is also very interesting because I don't know what it is, but I think that Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 have different darker vibes than Diablo 3. Like some really messed up stuff happens in Diablo 3, but Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 like made me feel like sinister. Like they made me feel like just it was dark.
Yeah, because Diablo 3 has a bit more of a comic booky vibe to it.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm, barring Blizzard fixes themselves, right? I'm excited about Diablo 4.
Yeah.
But still kind of waiting to see what they do with all that. But yeah, I have a lot of fond memories of Diablo, and I try to think back on like the one I've probably played the most, and I think it's probably 3. And also it's just like if I'm gonna play any of them, that's probably the one that's just like I'm gonna probably just play this one because I can jump in and like just have fun. I don't have to really think about much, you know.
Yeah, I hopped into 2 Remastered's beta and I was just like, man, wish this was faster. Like,
you know. It is slow. I mean, that's partially what I liked about it, is like playing it, I felt like I had to actually like do stuff. You know, I was like, oh man, remember when you had to walk to a dungeon? Or like you had to do X, Y, and Z, or you had to go.
Or you had to know where something was.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. But yeah, Diablo.
Cool. Diablo 3.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, what's your number 4th? Number
4th for me is going to be Red Dead Redemption 2.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 for me is a game that I do want to preface that by saying that the epilogue, of the ranch, that you're there for like 4 months, a little bit much. You know, you really could have cut out the last 9 hours of gameplay. That stretched out a little bit too much for me. But few games capture an entire landscape and an entire time period, where you do have this feeling that the Wild West is coming to an end. You know, it really does capture that time where it's the cowboys transforming into the big city people. And to be able to capture that period in history and see it through the lens of a cowboy that's basically fading out, it was so well done that whenever I played it, I couldn't put it down. It was almost like checking into another time in history. And Rockstar, obviously, right now with the Grand Theft Auto trilogy that was announced, and with the different changes that are coming to Grand Theft Auto 5 and the 17th re-release or whatever it is, they tend to fall out of they tend to fall out of good they tend to fall out of good graces pretty frequently within the community, just because they make strange moves that ultimately, I mean, they make money.
They are the studio that like consistently rests on their laurels.
Mm-hmm.
Like for the longest period of time.
Yeah.
And then is like, okay, then we'll give you something new.
I did not realize that got pushed to March of 2022.
The trilogy?
The next gen releases.
Oh yeah.
Of GTA 5. I didn't realize that. I thought that.
Yeah. They take their time, man. They're like, we don't gotta do nothing.
It's just really difficult to adapt a game that they adapted from PS3 to PS4, from PS4 to PS5. It's so difficult, you know.
I mean, just to put it in, not to get off on a tangent, but with Grand Theft Auto 5, I was playing that as a junior in high school. I have been graduated from college for nearly 3 years. and they're still releasing it. Like it continues.
It makes so much money.
Yeah.
Like it blows my mind. But Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game that, you know, you have John Marston from the original game as a factor there, so you have that continuing story. But the way that the story just evolves and becomes its own unique setting in a way with its own unique time period is something that for me is irreplaceable. And even now it's one that I want to go back to just because I love the feeling of those huge open plains in the middle of the West. So number 4, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Fun fact, I've played 90 hours of Red Dead Online because I was working on the guide for it for IGN. And I dropped off of Red Dead Redemption 2 when I got to the first camp after the snow area. And I haven't played it since. They asked me to shower and shave, and I couldn't figure out how to do it, and I quit the game, and I've never been back.
I literally played for about 8 hours and was like, "What am I doing?"
It's just it's almost like a simulator in a way.
Yeah.
Where if you don't want to live this life, like that's literally what you're doing is living a life. You're not really playing a game. Like you're like putting yourself into the shoes of this cowboy. And so like I get why people don't want to get that immersed into it. But tell me, what's it like playing 90 hours of Red Dead Online?
I played 90 hours of Red Dead Online when it came out, so it didn't have all the stuff that it has now. It was just, hey, do the, white hat version of all of these quests. Oh, hey, go murder a bunch of people so you can be evil, and then do the evil versions of all these quests, because they're different quest lines.
Yeah, okay.
It sounds like if you stare
go hunt around, find a bunch of chests out in the middle of nowhere, and log their locations.
It sounds like if you stared at a paint can and then one by one took a pair of tweezers and just plucked the hairs off of your genitals.
Wow.
It sounds
that's
about as exciting.
That's about what it's like. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've just described, working on a guide for Red Dead Online.
Yeah, I have no desire to ever touch the online. GTA, I understand because you have the role play and you have the, just crazy shit with rocket launchers and helicopters. When you take all of that away, including buildings and civilization, that just doesn't sound appealing to me.
Well, I think a lot of it is like GTA.
But it's my job.
Yeah, no, I
sure.
get it. Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course.
But I think with GTA, like part of the fun is the wackiness that happens when you're doing it with a group of people. Whereas with Red Dead, it's like, hey, we're just a couple dudes in the desert.
Yeah, straight up.
With whatever I'm carrying. Like, there's just not a whole lot going on there.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, my horse ran away. I'm in real trouble, guys. Come get me. I'm in the quicksand pit in the middle of, I don't know, wherever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, never mind.
So anyways, number 4, Red Dead Redemption
2. You know what? I'm really happy that episode 200 of this show is indicative of the rest of the run of this show.
It's a lot of nonsense.
Happy to be a part of it.
Oh, yeah.
It is. Which brings us to number 3. My third favorite game of all time is Tetris Attack.
Hell yeah.
Tetris Attack is the premier puzzle game.
Premiere.
It takes everything that Tetris does and it makes it better by making it a match 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 game. You can initiate combos by, your blocks rise up from the floor and you've got two blocks cursor that switches them left to right. And it is up to you to organize the colors and shapes in such a way that you drive your score up, that you send garbage blocks over to your opponent. Tetris 99 actually takes a lot from Tetris Attack. In a way, and like any multiplayer sort of Tetris stuff, takes a lot from Tetris Attack. There is also an indie game that is, I think it is still in development, called Spirit Swap, that takes a lot from Tetris Attack. Also, Planet Puzzle League, Pokemon Puzzle League, all of these games, they take stuff from Tetris Attack, which is actually, I think, in the vein of Mario 2, is actually a palette swap of another game that I don't actually know the name of, but it is on Nintendo Switch Online. Can't remember. You know what? I've got my Switch right here. Let me check this real quick. But Tetris Attack is such an incredible experience. It is something that I played for an absolutely untold amount of hours with my sister. It is something that I was able to get my family into, my parents into, my relatives into. Yeah, Jesus God, I have no idea what this game is. It has no name. Or it has a name, but I cannot read it.
You don't speak Japanese, reminder.
Whatever that is in the top left corner.
Sure.
It's like straight up Japanese. I have no idea what that is.
That's fine.
No idea. I do see that it's Tetris though.
Yeah. It looks like Tetris Attack.
But it is Tetris is a game that like I can't argue is good. I can't argue that it's not good. It is good. I just don't vibe with it as much as Tetris Attack. It's a matching game. You swap your tiles to create these, lined up versions of a bunch of different shapes and colors, and it's so incredibly satisfying. The music is amazing. It stars, Yoshi and all of these other characters from Mario and like Yoshi and I forget what the name of the little crow is, but then it's also got like the piranha, like the giant boss piranha plant, and Bowser and the little lava dude that I always played as. It's so good. It's so wholesome and enjoyable, and if you're playing multiplayer, it's incredibly competitive. I've actually played this and introduced a number of people to this who have become obsessed with it, which is a point of pride for me because I think this game is just absolutely magical. If you have not played it, this is another game where I'm like, I don't understand why, at the very least, you haven't brought this up, to whatever platform, or like why people aren't matching this. A lot of people have made like different spins on like your swapping based puzzle games. Like you've got Meteos, you've got Luminous, you've got all of these sorts of games, but nobody really does it as well as like Tetris Attack, in its kind of purest form. If you want to get this, I think I think you can get it on itch. You can get the demo for Spirit Swap, which is coming out before too long. And that is basically Tetris Attack, but with like a charge meter that you can use to do like super moves and stuff. But there's also like I said before, Planet Puzzle League, Pokemon Puzzle League, that I think are both available on either DS or 3DS.
Pokemon Puzzle League's on I think the Wii U eShop. I know it's on the Wii. It was on the Wii store or Wii shop back in the day.
Pokemon Trozai was different, right?
Yeah, rip the Wii shopping channel.
Yeah. But yeah, these sorts of like matching puzzle games are really my stuff, and Tetris Attack was such a huge part of my childhood. And it if I want to feel good, if I want to just have a good time and kind of disassociate and just enjoy the vibe of something wholesome and pure, that kind of scratches that puzzle solving itch, like there's nothing better than Tetris Attack.
Yeah. Excellent.
That's my number 3.
Number 3 for me, Uncharted 4: Thief's End on the PlayStation 4. No one is surprised. Congratulations.
Nobody is surprised.
Nobody is surprised.
Not really, no. Not really surprised.
I'm very excited.
I am kind of surprised because you did the what number was the Uncharted Drake's collection?
4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I think that Thief's End is the best of all of them.
What's funny is when I played it, like I didn't think that. I thought it was a very good game. I thought it was like one of the most impressive PS4 things I had ever seen, and I think it remains to this day. I think it's in the top 3 of the best looking PS4 games that have ever come out.
Yeah.
But it is everything that I love about the Uncharted trilogy and more, like, which is so cliche, but like
plus Troy Baker.
plus Troy Baker, which honestly, which funny enough, I think he's the weakest part of the game. But I think the maturity of the relationship between Nate and Elena, the stakes of it.
I still remember. There's a quote. What is it? People won't remember what you did, but they will remember. I think it's Maya Angelou. But they will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And you just saying Nate and Elena, like, I got feelings.
Yeah.
Them sitting on the couch together, like, that gave me feeling. Like,
them sitting on the couch, there's a point.
They feel like people to me. They feel like a real couple.
Yeah.
Which is powerful for the writing team at Naughty Dog to do.
Yeah, and I mean, like, full spoilers for Uncharted 4. Beware. But like when, there's a moment where you think that, like, she's died, towards the end of the game, and it's only for, like, 30 seconds. And it's this really, like, gut-wrenching moment where, like, Nate is, like, not okay. And he wakes her up and, and she's like, oh, she's fine. That's a really great moment. The moment where she finds out that, like, he is out treasure hunting again. And she's like, we talked about this. Like, you're not supposed to be out doing that.
Such a difficult scene.
Yeah.
But, like, such a good one.
Yeah. Like, there's so many great one-on-one moments in that game, but then, like, the when you're falling down the clock tower, when you're being drugged by the Jeep, like, there's just so many.
Jesus, was that 4?
Yeah.
My God.
There's so much in that game that, like, when I played it, it was a year ago now is when I got the platinum. But when I was going back and playing it,
Chris, come
on. When I was going back and playing it, though, there's just so many moments where it's like, fuck, there's so much in this game, and they do it so well, and it's so good. I don't know if it's that I wasn't, like, mature enough when I had originally played it, or I didn't appreciate it to the fullest extent because, I was younger, in my relationship with Jess and things like that. But, like, it just hit so much harder when I did play it. And I'm tremendously excited to play it on the PS5. 60 FPS, the whole 9. It's just such a perfect experience.
The Madagascar segment.
The Madagascar segment, like how you can just kind of take your time and just drive around and just really, like, take in, the scenery.
That was
Uncharted is known as, like, such a linear game, and that was the first time where it was like, wow, you're really, like, you don't have a ton of freedom, but, like, you do have some, and it gives you time to kind of, like, sit with it and enjoy these conversations as you're driving around, in a way that, like, is very reminiscent. Obviously, this came out before that game, but, like, very reminiscent of, like, In the Canoe with Mimir in God of War.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Sam?
Whenever you come over the hill in the Jeep, whenever you first get to that I think it's the Madagascar section, but it could not be. I haven't played Uncharted 4 in a while. But when you come over that hill and you get this huge landscape, and that's one of those cinematic moments where, on the PlayStation 4, and this is base PS4 for me, I was like, wow.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. I only played it on base,
Yeah, that was a gorgeous moment. And then to your point about the open world elements that they added there where you could kind of wander around, I love how they took that and extrapolated it in Lost Legacy, where you really had this little open world pocket that you could go around and just enjoy and discover new treasure, essentially, in this little hub world, for lack of a better term. But Uncharted 4 is a great pick. It's a really good game.
It one of my favorite things, like, to think about, just because, Naughty Dog fanboy, is, like, the progression that studio did with going from, like, incredibly linear experiences to that the Madagascar section to Lost Legacy to then The Last of Us 2's, like, linear but not linear section in Seattle. And the way that, like, that whole process matured, and just seeing, how that studio kind of learned from what they did previously and how they were able to improve upon it. Like, while I would be excited and, like, over the moon at the idea of, like, a sequel to Uncharted, it makes me more excited for what else they would do. But yeah, I mean, if you have a PS4 or PS5, if you have PlayStation Plus, like, play this game. It's on my body. Like, I love it. Like, I don't know how much more I need to say to convince you. It's on my body.
The call's coming from inside my body.
Yeah. Uncharted 4. Catch a fever.
Indeed. Josh.
What number are we on? 3?
3.
Final Fantasy X.
Oh,
which Brian and I talked about.
Are picking games that I've had on my list. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I won't go too long, but I have a lot of nostalgia for this game just because it's I mean, it's old, but also like my best friend and I played it together, and like it has arguably the best battle system in any of the Final Fantasy games to date.
Best turn-based for sure.
I don't think that's like controversial to say. And like I like the characters, the world is really interesting. Don't know what else to say. It's just a really great game. The laughing scene, while really dumb, is like bad dumb or good dumb, I should say. Like it's infamous, and it's I don't know, it lends something to the game in a way, if that makes sense. I don't know how else to describe it, but Final Fantasy X, it's definitely a catch the fever thing. Play the remaster. You can play it at like 60 FPS. The sphere grid is amazing. The only thing I don't like about the game is Blitzball. Blitzball can go to hell. Everything else.
I literally beat that game, and then during another playthrough, played to the story where that unlocks, and then didn't play it, unlocked the whole rest of the game, and then played the entirety of that game without playing any Blitzball, and just enjoyed the entire self-contained. I had like another save that was basically just Blitzball.
Yeah, so, I've met people that are like, I have like 200 hours in Blitzball, and I'm like, how? I
gotta tell you, yeah,
I hate every minute of Blitzball.
Edgar Allan Bro is like coming at you hard in the chat for.
That's fine. He's allowed to like Blitzball, but I hate it.
I have no opinion of it.
It is my least favorite thing about the game.
So good, so good. I mean, it's no triple triad. To be sure. Not.
If Blitzball was better, really like I'm not opposed to the concept of Blitzball. I just don't like the way it works. I've never really like got a good grasp of it, and every time I've tried to like really sit down, I'm just like, dude, this is way too much for like what it is. Like just.
I think that may actually be the most I've engaged with a Final Fantasy side game, in literally any of these games. That's the one that I've spent the most time with.
I would say everything at the Gold Saucer in 14. I play a lot of those mini games a lot. No. It's a little bit of a problem.
That's an MMO though. That's a little bit different. But yes, an absolutely incredible pick for number 3. Come on, that's Final Fantasy X is a 10, baby. Oh. It's in the name.
Is in the name. So is it my turn? I'm on to my number 3.
It is.
It is you, good sir.
I'm going to sprinkle in another dash of Naughty Dog with The Last of Us Part 2.
Oh, excellent pick.
So it was. I want to give an honorable mention because my original number 3 was Jak and Daxter. So Naughty Dog was coming either way.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yeah, because Jak and Daxter I grew up on, and that's part of my affinity for Naughty Dog is that I grew up with them. You know, where they started off with Jak and Daxter, and that was like my bread and butter as a kid. And then as I grew up, I saw Uncharted, and I got really into Uncharted. And then The Last of Us, and I've kind of like matured along with the studio in terms of what it's making.
I'm like the only person that loves Naughty Dog that hasn't played any of the Jak and Daxter games.
Dude, it's so good. Whip that shit out on Vita one day. Oh my god, dude.
It's actually a really good Vita series.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Vita, it's really good on Vita, and I think it includes everything. And then Jak X Combat Racing is also supreme, very good. But The Last of Us Part 2, it is a storytelling masterpiece. I mean, from the way the way that the environmental storytelling that happens along with the main story of Joel and Ellie and Vengeance, You really get to see this society that has continued to deteriorate and how it started to reestablish in this kind of survival era. And you see people that are just losing what little they have left through notes and through what's written on blackboards and just random stuff throughout the world. The people that are really paying attention to what the world brings get the most out of the story that's being told. But obviously, cutscenes, again, like we were talking about with Uncharted 4, some of the cutscenes, the facial animations are some of the best in gaming. And it's those facial animations that tell the story, because so much of human communication is told through body motion and body language.
90% is nonverbal, yeah.
Yeah, and so to be able to see, it's so difficult as a medium in gaming to capture pain in someone's eyes. It's so difficult to capture the emotions that a person is meant to be feeling. But Last of Us 2 does it so well, especially in that end scene where you see these stages of, passion, and you see these stages of anger, and then you see the defeat, that these people are going through, and they just kind of give up and they choose to live. It's just something that hasn't been matched for me in terms of storytelling. If we were ranking stories told in gaming, this would be my number one. It's just unlike anything else.
I'd probably agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, I can't think of that many studios or that many games that have taken swings this big, and for them to take a swing this big and just, in my opinion, some people disagree, in my opinion, hit it out of the park so hard. It's really astonishing. I mean, minor spoilers for this game, but like, one of the things that this game does that I think is so powerful and so notable is that they set the stage perfectly with the first chapter. Something awful happens, and they basically frame this game as one thing. And then they spend literally half of the game trying to say, like, just hold on a second. Reserve your judgment. Let me show you the other side. Let me show you what this person is like when they are not this way. And their ability to, throughout the rest of The Last of Us Part 2, bring you around and actually make you care about a person that you should hate is honestly a powerfully human experience. There are a lot of people that I vehemently disagree with that are still people. Like everybody is, like, we're all people, and we can disagree, and we can have powerful, powerful hate towards one another, and feelings of vengeance and loathing and just violence. And at the end of the day, being able to affirm that humanity is sometimes incredibly difficult to do. And to be able to convey that through the relationships that Ellie has with the other characters that she is with, through what is going on with Abby in her world, and everything that happens, is, man, one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in video games. Not to try, like, I'm not trying to like hijack what you were trying to say, but like that is all like stuff that like we talked about. Like, we've got a very long spoiler cast.
It's like 3.5 hours. Brian and I are very good about talking at length about this game.
That's true.
I mean, it's worth talking about.
Yeah. There's so much meat on that bone.
Yeah, it's incredibly good.
An exceptional choice. Yeah. That's.
Do you think they'll ever put out the multiplayer? Do you think it'll ever come?
No.
Factions?
I think that
it's coming, baby.
I just personally, for Factions, I don't think that it should have the Last of Us brand on it. I'm sure that they will have it on there because that's such a powerful brand where it's, anybody that sees The Last of Us, they're like, oh, sick, cool, downloading now.
Right.
Especially now that we've got, Pedro Pascal and, on like a live action thing that by all intents and purposes should turn out to be pretty good. I don't know.
Yeah,
HBO.
so you've got the TV show coming out, and then you've got this multiplayer-centric game that's coming out, and so I'm sure that it's going to be The Last of Us branded. But I mean, I enjoyed factions in The Last of Us. I don't think that that's ever going to be the knock it out of the park experience that people come to The Last of Us for. It's always going to be about that world and about these characters and about, even if there's another Last of Us game that comes back and doesn't continue the story of Ellie, and what that's like. I feel like we have a good end, a good period on what her life is. But there are so many other stories that could be told, even just from characters presented in too.
I can think of one really good story that could be told.
Yeah, there are tons. But Last of Us Part 2, number 3. Let's go.
Yeah.
Excellent. Which brings the cycle back to me for number 2. My number 2, and we've talked for a long time on this show that my favorite game of all time is actually a tie. So I had to make a decision for this one. And my second favorite game of all time, arguably the second best game of all time, is Baldur's Gate 2: Shadows of Amn. This is the game that
fucking nerd.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I am a nerd, but this game rips ass. So this game introduced me to the PC CRPG. Okay, Chris, who said what?
No, Edgar Allan Bro just goes, thank God you said it. Or thank you for saying it. This man here out here playing 3.5 like it's modern. Or 3.5e like it's modern.
Third edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
fucking get on his level.
What a bunch of fucking nerds! Oh my god!
Yeah,
I played 3.5e.
And I still say, even though this is officially on this list, my number 2, I still hold my favorite game of all time is still a tie. So this is just tied for 1.
Yes.
These are both perfect, immaculate games. But Baldur's Gate 2 introduced me to the thing that a lot of people got introduced to with Mass Effect, which is you go around, you are this hero who has developed some sort of renown for themselves. You gather up this team that is really meaningful and powerful to you, and you develop relationships with them. You get romantically involved with some of them. You go on a bunch of quests and loyalty missions and stuff before the end of the game, when it ramps up to 11 and becomes like this really crazy story. Since then, I've played Baldur's Gate 2 was actually the first game that I played in the series, and was, I think, the first Dungeons and Dragons based game that I ever played. That introduced me to the Forgotten Realms. That introduced me to so very many things. Baldur's Gate 2 was my introduction to, or I guess was kind of my gateway drug to Magic the Gathering and many other games. But it also did the thing, it did that thing that many open world games want to do, which is create a sense of place, create a sense of belonging, and let you be whoever you are in this space as you kind of make your way. There are, you can choose your alignment. And then you can group up with other like-minded people. You can group up with people who feel very differently from you. You can be a chaotic good character, grouping up with neutral evil characters, and you're gonna butt heads on decisions that you make. It has that kind of, in the way that I was talking about Final Fantasy Tactics or, these sorts of things. It has this tactical, strategic CRPG combat that many people in the modern times have come to through, something like Divinity Original Sin 2, or like a lot of games, more modern games like Tyranny or Pillars of Eternity or things like this. Baldur's Gate really was a huge force in that. And since in recent years, I've actually played Baldur's Gate 1 Enhanced Edition. And while it is good, Baldur's Gate 2 is just leagues better. It still holds up. I think it is still a fantastic game. It really is just an expansive experience, and being able to dive so thoroughly into a world that is so broken and so many terrible things are happening. Like a lot of people, we've mentioned Game of Thrones several times, even in this episode. But the world of Baldur's Gate and the world of Forgotten Realms is messed up. There's a serial killer in one of these areas that is harvesting parts of people's skin to make a very powerful dark magic kind of suit made out of it. It's like really messed up, but you go around and you solve this murder. You do all these sorts of things, and through it you delve into your lineage as the child of the god of murder and the kind of sinister implications that go behind that. And whether you choose to be a very heroic figure or a very malicious figure, the fact that you are a child of the god of murder is important, and that puts a very powerful pall over everything that you do and people's suspicions of you. And no game has really matched that level of like bizarre humor and weird darkness and kind of transcendent RPG experience. When the expansion Throne of Ball came out, I actually stayed up for 5 days straight playing it. I went to school in the morning, I came home, I ate dinner, I did my homework, and then I stayed up all night playing this game. And I did that for 5 days.
Jesus Christ.
How are you alive?
It is, yeah, I know, it's nuts. It's nuts. But, and like, it was one of those things where like after the first night I was so exhausted, and then the second night after that I was like, my God, have I unlocked the code? If you just stay awake, are you fine? Have people just not realized this?
That's you don't realize that once you hit a certain threshold, you're like, okay.
Yeah, it's fine. And then I got to like day 4 or day 5, and like after I was done, like after I was like, I have to beat this game. I can't stop until I beat this game. And then I beat it, and then I slept for I think like 14 hours.
Wow.
Something like that. Like,
hey Mom, what's it feel like when your liver stops working?
Yeah, exactly. But like, and I've never been like that sort of like to be a bit crass. Like I've never been that like a poop sucker or something like that. I've never had those sorts of moments where I was like, yo, I gotta play for like forever. Like I would play World of Warcraft for like long sessions, but I never had something where I was like, I have to know what happens. I have to know what happens in the story, and I can't stop until I know. And this was that for me.
That's wild.
So that's my tied for one favorite game of all time, Baldur's Gate 2: Shadows of Amn, which you can now get on many modern platforms in the enhanced edition, even Switch.
Yeah,
so
they
you
did.
Can play it.
They recently ported that in the last like 2 years ago. You're still a giant nerd though, but I love you, so it's okay.
Hey, I'll take it. It's a great fucking game.
Yeah. My number 2 video game of all time.
Wow.
Wow, I'm surprised it's not number 1.
That's what I thought.
This dork. You have the guts to call me a nerd and then talk about this bullshit over here.
Is that in the wrap?
That is in a protective case. So this is how
Hey,
much.
what game you're talking about?
This is how much of a fucking nerd I am. So, Edgar Allan, bro. Thank you. Apparently, I'm a man of taste. So
don't encourage him. Well,
I'm holding up a reproduction copy of Banjo-Kazooie on the Nintendo 64.
If you've been listening to this show, you knew this was coming.
You knew this was coming.
Yeah.
You knew this was coming. There he is back there, along with the Japanese releases of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, as well as the VHS promotional tape from Nintendo Power and a little,
Jesus
little plush
Christ.
there. I'm a fan of Banjo-Kazooie, if you haven't noticed. It's a nearly perfect game, and it's why it's number 2. It's a nearly perfect game. And I'm somebody that has played this game many, many times. It definitely has. There's one bullshit moment in particular that jumps out in Gobi's Valley, where you get the speed shoes and you have to get into the one of the pyramids, and like you need like one more second, because like if you don't get there in that one more second, like they just fuck you, and like it just doesn't feel good. But everything else in this game feels so good. It's such a simple concept. You go into every world. There's 10 worlds, or rather 9 worlds, right? 9 worlds. 10 jiggies, 100 music notes.
Asking in this chat. No one knows other than you.
5 Jinjos that you have to collect. You get a very diverse move set throughout the entirety of the game. And it has just some of the best level design and just like genuine creativity of any fucking thing that's ever been made ever. Literally ever. Like, there are so many moments in this game where I'm like, God, how did these people in the UK sit in a room and just think of this stuff on their own? You know, drugs are probably involved. That's fine. Gave me a great childhood. That's really all that mattered.
Josh, write that one down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But art can stop. We have Banjo-Kazooie. That's exactly right, chat.
Drugs were probably involved.
I've talked about this in the past, and I've talked about this game a lot, but like, it is a game that is so good that no one has remade it, because I know it's because they're afraid to, because it's that good. Like,
give us a new one, you cowards.
They won't, and they're like, I feel like there's just like a team in Microsoft that is like, listen, we've ran the tests. Like, we will never come close to how good the original Banjo-Kazooie is.
I'm sure that's what they're talking about.
They manufactured perfection, and it's so good that Nintendo looked at it and they said, hey, let's try. And then they made Super Mario Odyssey, and guess what? That game was not number 2 on my list. It was like number 12 or some bullshit. Like, Banjo-Kazooie rips ass. Catch the fever. It's so good.
Shade. I love it.
If you're gonna play this game, I will say there are 2 ways to play it. If you play like a ROM of the N64 version, you must know that going into each level, the counter of things that you collect will reset, because there's like a memory limitation on the N64 cartridges. So if you collect 99 music notes, then you die, you have to get all those 99 music notes again in order to get a perfect note score. If that sounds fucking awful to you, which it should for a first playthrough, play the Xbox release. It's in widescreen. They up-resed it. It has achievements. They added stop and swap. Even though all you got is some bullshit gamer pictures, whatever, it's fine. You get something out of it. Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie, there's nothing else like it. And I'll say this too. Banjo-Tooie, not that good. And you know how I know? Because it's not on my fucking top 20 list. Catch the fever. I'm done. I'm not done. I have one more, but still. Game.
You're done with that one.
Game.
You're done with this specific one.
I'm done. Well, I'm not done because I got more, but I'm done.
Banjo-Kazooie rules.
Jesus Christ.
Also, it's going to be on Nintendo Switch Online, which is another thing. Like, Nintendo took the time to be like, we know Microsoft owns the rights to this game, but guess what? We're still going to reach out and be like, hey, so we're putting this Nintendo 64 Online thing together. You think we can get some Banjo-Kazooie? Because they know how good it is. You want to hit me with some of that Banjo-Kazooie? Yeah. Game rules. I'm done.
Wow.
Josh, what is your second?
How do I even follow that up?
Good luck, bud.
Final Fantasy
We're all
7
for you.
Final Fantasy 7. All right.
Yeah.
Original
Final
or
Fantasy
remake?
7. Just the word Final Fantasy 7.
All right.
Don't worry about which version. All right.
All right.
Same with Metal Gear Solid. Which one do you like? That's the one.
I mean, they're powerfully different experiences.
They are, but Final Fantasy 7 is the first Final Fantasy game I ever played, and I was like 8 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even get it myself. I got a PlayStation with Tomb Raider and Jersey Devil of all things. And then my dad's friend knew that I was getting a PlayStation and just went to the store and was like, "What's the hit thing like right now?" Which happened to be Final Fantasy VII. So he bought me a copy of it.
The cashier and was like, "Hey, what are all the kids into now?"
Hey,
well, I'll tell
Vendo,
you what they're into.
What's the hotness?
What's the thing that all the young whippersnappers are into?
This crazy game that just came out of Japan. It's called Final Fantasy
VII.
But it's the 7th one. It's crazy.
But you don't need to have played the previous. You don't even need to play the previous 6 or any of the spin-offs to understand. I just love everything about Final Fantasy VII. I don't know what to say. I don't know what else to say. I love the characters. I love the world. Like that, the music in it has like stuck with me for years. I still think about like Aerith's theme and just like, oh, my tears, you know.
Yep.
It is just like masterclass RPG design and stuff. And it and if you really want to know more about the game, like if you're a fan, I highly recommend reading the oral history of Final Fantasy VII thing that Polygon wrote, because it is incredible. And you get to find out a lot of like cool tidbits about the game. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII, it's like rich with nostalgia. It's such a cool like 90s looking game. Just like the story's really good. The music is top notch. I love it. I love everything about it.
Yeah, Under the Rotten Pizza and the battle theme for Final Fantasy VII are like 2 absolute all-time greatest bangers, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Never forget
banger.
That bass line.
So juicy. So soulful.
It, as the kids say, slaps.
Slaps the shit out ya.
It slaps.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy, my dude, what is numero dos?
Number 2 for me is Halo Combat Evolved.
Ooh. Oh,
yeah.
Excellent choice.
So I'm a huge fan of Halo. As you can see, I've got my Master Chief holding the Xbox controller. I've got my book collection up here. I've got all the shit going on. I'm reading Fall of Reach right now, but I'm just a huge Halo guy. And
that's a fucking great book.
That is a great book.
I read it in junior high, and I remember nothing about it.
Oh, yeah, that's unfortunate.
It's just not that this is a book club.
It was like 2/3 of my life ago.
I mean, it's just to see the origins of Master Chief in Fall of Reach and to understand how the sacrifices that the UNSC made to make that program happen. That's what I love about getting into the books. But Halo Combat Evolved,
just a tiny aside, reading the Fall of Reach made me like, I was literally talking about John's origin story with my wife yesterday.
Yeah.
Like literally talking about that King of the Hill match that they describe in Fall of Reach with him and the other kids.
Yeah.
Like, and that is and the whole thing, and that carries forward to Halo 3 when like Cortana's talking about him being lucky, and that, you know, and like all the different things. Like, man, Halo is so special, and
it is.
And
that's what people don't understand, is that whenever you just have a basic, like, you know, you join a match and Slayer, you know, you like have all that shit going on.
Yeah.
And that's like, you can get as deep into it as you want, but if you want to get into the lore, I mean, it's not on the level of like a Destiny, but it gets pretty deep. You know, you can get some good shit going. But Halo is just such a special game, not only because I love the story and I fell in love with Master Chief as a character, and of course he's the face of Xbox. But in terms of gameplay, it set the foundation for every first-person shooter to come thereafter. And without Halo Combat Evolved, you don't have... I mean, it would probably have evolved there eventually, but it was the first big game to successfully implement dual thumbstick controls on console. And so
first time a shooter was truly great on console,
Yeah, there was an Alien game that came before that integrated that kind of thumbstick control, but Halo is the one that first brought it and made it popular. And without Halo, you don't have Call of Duty and Battlefield and Doom as you have them today. And the influence that it had. And even today, I mean, I've played the Master Chief Collection since 2014, and it continues to be a game that I keep going back to. I'll play Halo Combat Evolved for 2 or 3 hours on a weekly basis. I mean, it's just a game that the 3-shot, headshot, magnum kills, the world itself, whenever you're playing PvE, everything about the game is just brought together and wrapped up. And of course, it's not perfect. No game is. But the way that it welcomes you back and it feels like home for me, like this is just a game that I can just get lost in. And if there's like a snowy Saturday in the middle of January, oh, fuck yeah. Like I'm all over some Halo Combat Evolved. Like that's hot chocolate, Halo Combat Evolved. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And to see how the franchise has continued to evolve thereafter, where, I even love Halo 4. And while these are two very different games, it still has that. Yeah. It still has that same foundation where you can feel that it's a good Halo game, and each of those has that. 5, you're getting real lost, you're falling off of that Halo.
5 is the weak point, but I still am a big fan of 4. I think it did a lot right. And there is something to be said for the pure simplicity of Halo 1. There's no sprint. You don't need it. You run pretty fast. You hop in a Warthog. You do everything you need to do. The pistol is a fucking sniper rifle.
Hell yeah.
Like it is ridiculous. And one of the things that I love, just as a super quick aside, in the recent Halo Infinite flights, is I feel like they really married the feeling of Halo 1 and Halo 4 in a really beautiful way. That like they have said Halo Infinite is the next 10 years of Halo. Bring it on, dude.
Yes.
I am ready.
Yeah, it doesn't feel fast, but they've added enough. I like the mobility of the grappling hook to where you can sling yourself across the map, but you're also not Spider-Man. You know, like you can do a lot of good motion. But if you guys are interested in it, and anyone listening, if you're into the history of how Halo Combat Evolved came to be, it was originally like a top-down it was a MAC game, but it was a top-down strategy. And then it transformed into a third-person shooter. And then I Googled the composer, Martin O'Donnell. He made the theme song in a weekend. Like, he just popped that shit out.
Ridiculous.
Right? And so we were talking about...
best themes ever made.
We were just talking about songs that slap. Whenever... And this is how nerdy I am. Yeah. So for that Halo 2, the Milner remix, I will run to that shit. Where it's like... Yeah.
Honestly, the Halo 2 soundtrack has enough tracks on it that like you could make that a gym playlist.
Yeah, no, and he's still going.
Just like the influence of Halo, it's still going.
It's still going. Its presence has still been felt. I like, to be perfectly frank, like I've played shooters for a long time. I played Quake. I played Unreal Tournament. I played Counter-Strike. I played like all of these games. I played Half-Life Deathmatch. There have really been like 3 great arena shooters ever. And one was Quake. Like specifically the one I got into was Quake 3. Another one is Unreal Tournament, and then Halo. And since Halo, I don't think there's been another truly incredible arena shooter that has existed. People may disagree, like, whatever, but like, I really feel like once Halo came out, that was a fork in the road. And there were games like Call of Duty, and there were games, that went off in different directions. And then there was Halo. And, with mild diversions with 4 and 5, Halo has been a constant. And I feel like with Infinite, they're really making a statement of like, this is what Halo is. It is grounded, but you are still powerful. You are a Spartan warrior, but that means something. And I'm very happy to have Halo back. I mean, I think you couldn't really pick a more important game for your number 2. Really.
Yeah.
Especially you. Like, I feel like the majority of your Twitter in the time that I've known you has been half the tweets are talking about Halo.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that people get sick of it, but it's just one of those things where
we actually brought you on so that I could air my grievances with your Twitter feed. I can't take it.
I can't blame. I mean, well, number one, I tweet incessantly throughout the day. But on top of that, it's a lot of Halo, a lot of Xbox. But yeah, the significance of Combat Evolved in the way that it still I mean, you ask anybody between the ages of 25 and 30, what do you remember as a game that you played with your friends in high school? 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, oh, gathering around the TV playing Halo 1 and 2, that was the shit. Like, that's just, it's such a crossroads of society. It goes beyond just basic gaming.
I'm considerably older than that, and that is the game I remember from college.
Yeah.
Like, that is the game I played in college with my friend. The specific friends, my friend Matt Skinner, we stayed up forever. He would come over, he would bring Monster Energy or Red Bull or whatever, and we would just play all night. We would pop on like Breaking Benjamin on the on my stereo or whatever. And then they ended up in the fucking game in Halo 2.
Hell yeah, they did. I listened to that shit today.
Yeah, like, Diary of Jane or like all these different things. Like that was the thing. We would be in my dorm at college or, in my apartment or whatever. We'd just be playing those games together all night long. Campaign co-op, legendary.
It is amazing, like how many people have a story only like very similar to that. Like even earlier you said the thing about, if it's a snowy day in January, like what am I doing? Like the Christmas break when Halo 1 came out, I still remember like infamously I wanted a GameCube and we didn't get it. We got an Xbox. And I was like, oh, guess I'll watch my brother play Halo. And like was like, curmudgeon about it and then just falling in love with it. That's all we did the entire, break. But everybody has those stories, and like I feel like not everybody can say that about many games.
My wife Audrey played GoldenEye with her brothers and sister growing up on N64. That was so many people's first shooter.
Yeah, that was another one like that.
But she didn't have like and marrying me as she is not particularly into games, or at least wasn't at the time. And for me, somebody who games is like my favorite medium, my favorite artistic medium. I was so into shooters and so into that space. When Halo 5 came out, I was playing it. I was having a great time. I make really good sweet tea. And she asked me when I was in the middle of a multiplayer match to make some tea. And I said, okay, take this controller, keep moving around so I don't get kicked out of this match. And then she was like, okay, but I don't want to fuck everything up on your score. And I was like, I don't care about my KD ratio. Don't worry about it. Just keep moving so I don't get kicked out. And she was like, oh, okay. How do you shoot? And then I was like, it's the right trigger. And then how do you aim this? And then she kept asking me these questions as she was running around. And then she punched somebody and killed them. And then she found the energy sword and she killed 5 people. And she'd never played a twin stick, like a shooter that used both sticks before. And by the time I was done making the tea for her, she was like, hey, is there a way that we can play this, but like not against other people? And it was just you and me versus like, I don't know, the computer or something. And I was like, is there? We can play the campaigns of these games, and we played Halo 4 and then we went back to Halo 1 and played through all the Master Chief Collection. And to this day, she has actually played through Halo Combat Evolved herself, I think 3 times. And we got into that like when Halo 5 came out. That is her favorite Halo game. And I think she said that's her favorite game ever.
Yeah.
And as somebody who Halo is how she learned to do dual sticks. And now she's able to jump into games like Destiny and other shooters and feel at home and feel comfortable. And we played a bunch of the Halo Infinite flights together. And this was how she did it. And now Halo Combat Evolved, like the first one is still, even coming to it in a modern space, is still like her favorite. Halo Combat Evolved is special for many reasons, but not just because of when it came out, but also even still today. Like it is a very singular experience.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. But ultimately, what you all need to know is that Halo Combat Evolved rips ass. Okay?
It rips ass.
That's what we need to know. Okay, all right, good.
That's what we know. So it gets your the platformers Catch the Fever award.
Yeah, it gets the platformers Catch the Fever award.
The rip
Halo
ass
Combat
award.
Evolved. Yeah. It gets my rip ass medal of the evening.
Oh my God! So is it time?
It's time.
it's time for number one. My favorite game of all time is Super Metroid. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. And with the, Metroid Dread just came out. There's a lot of conversation about the Metroid series. Metroid Dread has already been, I think, confirmed to be the best-selling entry in the entire series, which is good. I hope Nintendo brings it back, and I hope that it's not another 19 years between mainline 2D games. Super Metroid, in examining this game in the wake of Metroid Dread and a lot of my rage at the Emmy encounters in Metroid Dread, and a lot of my frustration with the, in my opinion, as good as it is, lackluster kind of stage design and world design of Metroid Dread, and the kind of hand-holding nature of the network check-ins with Adam, the AI, it has caused me to reflect on what makes Metroid so special, even when I really only think there's one transcendent entry in the series, and it is Super Metroid. And the interesting thing is, looking back on this game with a modern lens, as somebody who has 100%ed Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 and, Demon Souls and all of these other games, a lot of the things that I love about the Souls series started with Metroid. The things that a lot of people get hung up on, Dark Souls is difficult, but that's not what makes it good. The thing that makes Dark Souls good is its masterfully designed interconnected world, its environmental storytelling, it's rewarding the player, as we were talking earlier with Breath of the Wild, with, if you think you can do this, try it. You can probably do it. There are so many things that Metroid did, the original Metroid on NES, but it was too hard. It was too rudimentary. It didn't have that polish, in much the way that Mega Man, the original Mega Man, didn't really have everything. It had the kernel of something great, but it really didn't capitalize it on it and really polish it to a fine shine the way that Mega Man 2 did. The evolution from Metroid 1 to Metroid 3, Super Metroid, is considerable. And I've just been revisiting Metroid Zero Mission and Metroid Fusion, and even Metroid Dread. I've played through, the first 2 or 3 areas again since I beat it. And then revisiting Super Metroid, this game is just flawless. Sam was talking about, there's no such thing as a perfect game. And I agree with that to an extent, but there are games that are just transcendent experiences that it's really hard to find flaw with because they get so much right. And Super Metroid just is that for me. It is the pure exhilaration of exploration and discovery. And apart from kind of setting the stage with a few screens of text in the intro, it really leaves you to figure out what the story is about. And it is an emotional story. It goes places, and it can make you feel things even without text. And the way that each piece of music in every area perfectly encapsulates the feeling of it, whether it is kind of just this overbearing kind of sinister nature with like the Norfair theme, or like kind of a peppy kind of adventurous thing with like the Brinstar theme, or the opening moments when you land on the planet Zebes and there is a thunderstorm happening and there is rain pattering down on the ground, and you can hear the cracking of thunder in the background as you're, delving deeper and deeper into the earth. It is a truly transcendent experience. And if you have not played Super Metroid, it is on Nintendo Switch Online. So if you have a Nintendo Switch Online subscription, go into the Super Nintendo app and play this game, because it is absolutely one of the finest experiences you will ever have in video games. it's masterful. It is inspired by many things. It draws inspiration from Alien and from many other things, but I think that it is, as far as a game where you explore, you start as a competent but still underpowered hero, you gain new abilities as time goes on, and those abilities make you more powerful both in combat and in your ability to explore. It is a very pure, very focused experience that is unlike almost anything else in gaming. And that is why it is my favorite game of all time.
Very good, very good,
very good.
I don't think we can hear it, but Chris was doing the jazz snaps to clap for me afterwards. But yeah, I feel very powerful about that game, and that is, it's no surprise that it's my number one.
You want to talk about a game that fucking rips ass? No. The Last of Us Remastered is my number one game of all time.
Wow.
Yeah. Story-wise, it is just one of the most moving. I think it's probably the most moving game that I've ever played in terms of just it being a complete and tight experience. I equate it to like something like Breaking Bad is like the example that I always give, where like I love when something goes out to tell a story and it knows what it's trying to be. It's from beginning, middle, and end. There's not a whole lot of like exposition. There's not a lot of moments that feel like they shouldn't be there or don't need to be there. Everything in that game just feels like
not a lot of fat on that bone.
Yeah, like everything in that game is just very tight. It serves a purpose. And the way that it slowly introduces you to not only the tone of the world, but the stakes of it is pretty incredible. The first 10 or 15 minutes of that game, with the outbreak happening, and
oh my god,
it's
the ending of that scene gets me literally
every time. Like with the amount of times that I played that game,
it got me before I was a father.
Yeah,
and that should tell you something.
I couldn't imagine playing that after having kids, because I'm sure it'll mess me up big time.
Brutal. It is difficult.
Yeah.
It is very, very difficult.
Yeah. But not only, it's not just the narrative, but I think it's one of the only games that I genuinely love that is like a survival. It's a survival horror game for sure. It's also a stealth game. And I think it combines a lot of my favorite genres in a way that is incredibly seamless. Almost like I'd almost equate it to like a Mega Man, where especially when you're playing on like crushing difficulty in Survivor, where you'll enter a room and you go, okay, if I go into this room, there's going to be two guys in here. But if I spend,
what can I skip?
Yeah, who can I get past, or who do I have to take out first? What order do I have to take them out? If I wait 10 seconds, how does that impact the experience? Is the guy down the hall going to hear me if I wait too long?
If I have to spend one of my shivs, that's a problem.
Yeah. Can I just throw a smoke bomb and just sprint through this thing? Because you can do that in The Last of Us. It's incredibly helpful in the last section. You can just keep throwing smoke bombs and, just sprint to the end. But the ways in which it's the only game that I've ever like really tried to break, and
interesting.
And I continue to try and break it. Like the more that I play it, I find new ways that I can play it. And I don't know why I find that so enjoyable, but I do. Like there's the part where Ellie's being, the sniper for you, and you're in a courtyard with probably about like 15 or 20 guys. But if you climb up to a building and climb into the office area, you can little by little just keep picking people off because they'll keep climbing in, and you can just keep strangling them one by one, and then you end with just this giant pile of bodies. And it's like so funny to me, but like it's little things like that that keep me coming back, because I find new ways to enjoy it, and the tension that it manages to bring section by section, on those hard difficulties, when you're like, okay, I have one bullet and there are 5 guys and there's a bottle over there. Like,
what am I gonna do?
How do I make this work? It's an incredibly satisfying and fun experience when you do get past it. But beyond that, I'm in love with the world. I'm in love with the characters. I think the clickers are some of the most interesting. I mean, clearly, I think there's some of the most interesting adaptations to something
Chris
that
just
is
held up his tattoo.
Yes,
his arm that has a tattoo of a clicker on it.
Yeah, it's the Ali Moss Mondo print. If you've never seen it, Google it. It's one of my favorite images ever made. Yeah, I mean, I think it just introduced a lot of people to. It showed a lot of people what not only what Naughty Dog can do, but what video games can do.
Yeah.
And people continue to discover it and love it. And the fact that this is a game that, I mean, granted, it ran like shit on the PS3. I will say that. And that's why I say, like, full stop, play the remastered one. And if you have a PS5, like, it'll run at 4K 60 and it's great. That's definitely how I recommend playing it. And it has factions, which, like, I'm terrible at, but time and time again,
I loved that.
I love it, and I will continue to come back to it. And as much as I hate the trophies in this game, and the fact that I don't have the platinum,
it sucks.
I love that it's still there for me to chase. Like, I'm very close to the platinum in The Last of Us Remastered, and I've played it an absurd amount.
Too much. One would say.
Many would say. But I still find myself going back to it. And while I'm not like, oh my God, I can't wait for another remaster. Like, sure, I'll play it. But it's just a great combination of so many of the things that I love about video games. And it was the introduction of a franchise and world that I didn't expect that I would fall in. I was excited when the game came out because I loved Naughty Dog. I didn't expect to fall in love with it and everything about it, and continue to talk about it the way that I do this many years later, when it came out. It's great. I love it. Sorry, Edgar Allan Bro, for literally doing the thing that you said in the chat that everyone does about The Last of Us, but
which is what?
I'm just that guy. He was like, everybody talks about it like it's just like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and
it's pretty great.
That's because it is.
I think the thing about The Last of Us for me is that, like, it's super significant in that it's just a really good, well-made game. But on top of that, we've seen it happen in recent years with, like, Spider-Man as a good example of how there's a new PlayStation icon that's kind of born. But when The Last of Us came out, it redefined what people thought of whenever they thought of PlayStation. You know, for the longest time, and still to some degree, it's like your Crash Bandicoot is like the icon of PlayStation back in the day. And then as that changed, you began to see that kind of evolve.
That changed and Crash became owned by Microsoft.
Is it?
Well, it was Activision for a while.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Yeah, Activision. Yeah. But, Crash Bandicoot used to be like the face and the icon that PlayStation had. I mean, in so many of the little sizzle reels at the beginning of games, you see Crash running through and like random shit like that. But,
gonna jump on his little Mario stuffed doll,
yeah, you have like these little keys that point back to that. But then Last of Us has become an icon, and Kratos kind of defined PlayStation 2's generation, but The Last of Us continues to be a big, mainly for PS3, but also since the remaster kind of straddled where it came out on PS3 and very shortly thereafter on PS4. It's still just a very big, when people think PlayStation, they think Last of Us.
And like if we're being honest, and I don't think it's really any surprise, like PS3 and PS4 had a slew of really exceptional exclusive games, and The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2 are arguably at the top of both of those piles, which says a lot for a very stacked roster.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that has done nothing but bolster people's estimations of Naughty Dog and PlayStation by extension. So, Josh, what's your one?
Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem.
Hell yeah.
The greatest game you've never played.
Yep. I mean, I keep hearing people talk about sanity mechanics.
And unfortunately, a lot of people will maybe never play it, which is sad. It is, I guess, a survival horror game, but like not really. It is a horror game though. It's set in the like 2000s, like early 2000s in, I think it's either Rhode Island or New England. It's one of those. I weirdly can't remember, even though I've played the game a million times. But it's got a H.P. Lovecraft kind of universe. So there's these like old gods vying for control and all this stuff. And
you have my attention.
There are sanity effects, like Brian mentioned, some of which are horrifying and some of which are funny and very like creative and unique. But the idea of the game is that you play as a woman named Alex, whose grandfather gets murdered, and they can't figure out how it happened or who did it or why. So you go to live in his mansion while they figure it out.
Sounds like a good idea.
And then you start uncovering parts of the mansion and finding out he was like researching all of this weird Cthulhu kind of shit. And you as you like unlock puzzles do puzzles in the mansion, like kind of Resident Evil style, you find like weird keys, or you have to like read notes to figure out like what time to turn the clock to open the secret passage or whatever. You find pages of this book called The Tome of Eternal Darkness, and then every time you read the page, you go back in time and play as that character, doing their story where they interacted or like ran up against the otherworldly beings.
Chris, does this sound familiar to you?
Yeah, because it's like a 20-year-old game.
No, this sounds like What Remains of Edith Finch.
It's
actually
similar.
It is very, yeah, it does sound very similar.
It's similar.
I might have to go back and play this game.
Way more violent. But yeah, so you go through time, like you'll play like a woman who's an Aztec, or you'll play like a Roman centurion, or you'll play like some dude like right after the American Revolution who's like related to the main character who's living in the house.
Warrior,
like
Roman centurion, and some dude.
There's so many. There's so many characters and levels and stuff. That's the thing. But what's cool is like some of the stories take place in the house that you're in, because the house is super old. So you'll like see rooms that no longer exist, or you'll see like, when I'm in the past, there's a door here, but then when I go to the future, there's not a door here. And then like, how do I figure that out? And you have to like find spells to like do puzzles around the mansion. And there's like, it gets wild, but it is incredibly good. Voice acting and writing was like way ahead of its time, I would say, in terms of like game writing and just voice acting. And it's sad because it'll probably never be re-released in any form whatsoever. And the reason for that is because it was developed by Silicon Knights, which no longer exists, and it was published by Nintendo and like sent to die basically. Because it's an M-rated game on the GameCube, and that's it. It's the only place it came out. And Nintendo, like, even though they published it, did not put any backing behind it. Like, they didn't market it. They just kind of sent it out. Even though, like, game critics and, like, really hardcore people who were, like, playing the GameCube at the time played this game and ate it up and loved it. And there was all this talk of, like, a sequel and stuff, and then it just never happened. So, and it's not a game that ends on a cliffhanger, by the way. It has a complete story. But it is, like, if you want to play it, you basically have to track it down, or you have to emulate it. Which is really unfortunate, because I would love Love an HD remaster.
I've heard so many people who love horror games talk about this being like the best one. And like it is not even like a small number of people. I've heard lots of people talk about this game. It is mentioned on like top lists, like a lot of top lists, like frequently. So
yeah,
I think it's kind of shocking that there's not been any effort to bring this forward.
I mean, it's one of those things where like it barely sold, so
I guess so. Yeah.
Nintendo kind of just doesn't care about it. It's sort of just languishing. Silicon Knights doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
And like, yeah.
Hold on. I want to make sure I read that right. I just went to the Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
Eternal Darkness sold less than 500,000 copies worldwide. In Japan, the game sold 17,748 copies.
Yeah. And it's not even because it's bad. It's just that Nintendo,
they just didn't market it.
Didn't market it at all. And also it was only on the GameCube, which
there weren't a ton of them.
It was okay, it did okay. Like if it wasn't on the PS2 like or the Xbox, like basically nobody played it, which is why I say like no one's played it and no one will play it because it's locked forever just on the GameCube. And I would pay so much money to get it like up-resed and put on.
How many dollars would you pay precisely?
A lot of dollars.
Have you ever done like the dolphin thing?
I have. It runs really good.
Oh, okay.
I would hand somebody a blank check and be like, just make it happen.
Whoa.
Just make it happen.
For between $100 and $150.
You know what's funny is if I feel like Nintendo just invested and gave it to someone to do. The problem is I bet you that all the source code and everything is just lost to time.
Probably.
It would probably have to be remade from the ground up, like completely.
That's what you want, right?
I would be fine with a remaster. I'll take a remake, but if they just did a remaster, I'd be perfectly fine with that. But I feel like it might be impossible. But if you can, like, track it down because this game is incredible. And the secret ending is one of those endings that I refuse to spoil for anyone because it is so good. And like the way that you unlock the secret ending is you have to beat the game 3 times, which sounds weird. But there's a choice you make in the very beginning that dictates who the villain, like basically who the big bad behind the scenes is the whole time you're playing. And there's 3 choices. And when you pick it, your save data gets stamped with that like icon. And so if you beat it 3 times, it generates like
one each time.
And pick the different one each time, it generates the secret ending. Which was like when I first got it, it was like mind blowing. Although what? Like it like recontextualizes the entire thing.
Are these like the 4 rune looking things? Like they look like I was just looking at gameplay while you were talking about it. Yeah, that's cool.
How long is this game? Because emulation is a thing, and I may actually dive into this.
It's not
if I can take it.
Super long. I want to say each playthrough. Like a playthrough would be.
Face, Chris?
A playthrough might be 8 to 10 hours, but I also am like the different choices. You don't really need to do them if you're just like I want to do one playthrough and then like watch the secret ending. You can do that. These were the days before YouTube when that was the only way, right, to do that. It was like, and also it was my favorite game, so I was just doing it, right? It was like,
of course,
I was just playing it, but. Yeah, Eternal Darkness, man. It's so good. And some of the sanity effects are so good because some of them are like, you'll start going insane and then you'll just be walking and then your head explodes and you're like, and then your health bar just drops to 0. And you think like, did I just like die? Like what happened? And then you'll phase out and come back to reality. And then other ones are literally like the screen goes black and then in green text in the corner, it just says game for like 5 to 7 seconds. Like, on old CRTs where you had game mode. So it would do that.
Oh my god, yeah.
There was another one.
So it's like Psycho Mantis and what happens at the end of Metal Gear Solid 2.
If there was a bunch of those. The one that always got me in the past was I was playing it in a room with a bunch of friends, and one of them is like that old school CRT like volume thing with all the knots and all the little
it just keeps going
things,
up.
and it starts going down, and like the volume goes down, and I started standing up going like, who's sitting on the remote? and then it like fades white, and I'm like, oh, this isn't happening and stuff. It's so good. It's such a good game. It's so creative and unique.
Wow.
That's awesome.
How long to beat has the main story at 13 and a half hours, with extra at 15, and that if you're a completionist, it's 30 and a half hours.
Yeah, because if you know where to go, it's a little faster.
Yeah.
And there's certain spells that like you're not supposed to be able to get early, but there's like a spell crafting part where you can just plug in the symbols and see what happens, and there's certain spells you can get early that will like speed you up a little bit too.
Jazz snaps for Josh.
Cool.
That's it.
Sam, take us home.
My favorite game of all time, my number one, is going to be God of War 2018.
Oh,
nice.
Baby.
It is phenomenal in so many ways. And like I said earlier, if I was choosing based on story, it would still be The Last of Us Part 2. But the thing that I love the most about God of War 2018, number one, is the gameplay is phenomenal. I mean, it feels like you are a big ass motherfucker swinging an axe around. Like it is great. You know, just to be able to chunk an axe and then call it back in one hand, you know, it's just that kind of stuff gets me. But the gameplay was phenomenal. But on top of that, it shows how Kratos has evolved as a character, and it shows how he's tried to take control of that anger that has dominated his life and brought it to this point where he's had to kind of recede to the wilderness and become this isolated figure. But it also is a really great commentary on human emotion, and how you can capture that anger and keep it inside, but to what end? You know, it really brings like a lot of good commentary about that around. And it also explores loss through, you know, a lot of things that happen throughout the story and coping with grief, and kind of controlling anger in that grief. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that I really like about it. But again, you know, we've been talking throughout the show about games that shine on PlayStation 4, and God of War came out at a time whenever I started playing on base PS4, and then I upgraded to a Pro after I started playing God of War. And so that upgrade to the PlayStation 4 Pro and that kick up to 60 FPS, I mean, that game is the most beautiful game on PlayStation 4 for me. Whenever you're hiking up, you know, through this mountaintop and you see these ranges off in the distance and the snow looks natural. I mean, it looks like snow. And to be able to see the relationship between Kratos and Atreus and the facial animations again, you know, whenever you have such good voice acting and acting in general. The rune system is fantastic. The upgrade tree is wonderfully done. And then on top of that, there's a good grind towards the end where if you're really trying to go through and complete each individual realm, there's a lot that you can do, especially when it comes to Helheim, I think is what it is.
Yep.
Where you kind of climb this tower, this spire, and you fight people along the way. That's a really well done piece where I can spend hours and hours just playing for fun through Helheim. And so the replayability of it, but also the completion in its story. Obviously, there's a new God of War coming out, but from beginning to end, there's a really good story told of Kratos, and it reintroduces this PlayStation icon into the universe in a way that matures him beyond this hack and slash, you know, PlayStation 2 game that you're all familiar with and that we all know and love. And it becomes this same hack and slash kind of game that has changed, and it's kind of grown into this narrative driven action game that you really can't compare to anything else. I've said it since day one, whenever the PlayStation 5 was announced and the kind of console generation began to take shape. I don't need a PS5 until God of War comes out. that's going to be my big upgrade game that I finally go in on, and hopefully by that time, Returnal will be like $10. But yeah, so God of War 2018 is by far my number one. It is beautiful, it is wonderful, and it is everything that I really want in a game. Just a really well-made game.
I really was dubious about God of War when I first played it because it felt so different from God of War 3, which I really, really loved. I never played Ascension, but I played both I guess Chains of Olympus, the first PSP game, and 3, I really, really loved, and I'd liked the whole series up until then. And I was like, man, this feels so different. This feels so grounded and heavy. And then you get some skills and you can start juggling people and you can and it really does. Even though you as a character are way more grounded than you are before, you can still get that same feeling and that same sort of combo stuff going as you could in the older games in a way that I found super impressive, particularly because I feel like the voice acting, the performance capture is like so
Christopher
much better
Judge
than it was.
is just on another level when it comes to, I mean, from the Game Awards Read It Boy all the way back to the very beginning, it's just everything about him I love. It's great.
The scene when they're in the treasure room and he sees the urn that has him on it, and like that, like I still think about that. Mm-hmm. Like that moment where and as someone who has made mistakes in my life, but nothing like, I don't have regrets like he has regrets. I have like powerful regrets like we all do. But like the weight of that performance, like I believed it. I was there with him in that moment as he was thinking, what have I done with my life? Like, what is this child of mine going to become? Like, and his scolding Atreus and saying, no, we are gods and we have to be better than that, because he has seen the road. He has seen where that road ends because he walked it himself, and the absolute just hatters of the Greek pantheon, and that he doesn't want to see that happen to the Nordic gods. Man, what a powerful game. And again, like Last of Us, another game that hits very different once you have kids.
I'm sure, yeah.
But yeah. Man, what a fantastic way to round this out.
I will say, Sam, whenever you do get a PS5, definitely fire that game up. And just like, if you don't get it day one with God of War, obviously you get it with God of War 2, like just play that. But that PS5 patch, it's like a whole new world.
yeah, I'm definitely going back. And of course, since I played the original on the base PS4 and then the PS4 Pro, I've gotten 4K HDR TV. So, that next step up to be able to see that again, I'm definitely going to be going back to it. And hopefully, for the next upgrade for me with that mid-gen leap, whether it's a PS5 Pro whenever I pick it up, or if it's going to be the regular PS5 that we've got now. Hopefully, again, the collection of games that are out right now, Miles Morales, Returnal, Demon Souls, that kind of stuff will be a little bit cheaper to where I can get, 6 games and just burn through them. So, looking forward to it.
Nice.
Yeah. Man. What a roster of games. Mm-hmm. And what a lineage of episodes. And now there's, if you count our special episodes, there's over 200 of them, but 200 main episodes. Thank you so much for being here with us, Sam, for this.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's been great celebrating 200 episodes with you guys, and celebrating, of course, the games that made us all want to do this kind of thing to begin with. Gaming as a medium is so powerful, and I think, one thing that I always bring up whenever people are talking about game of the year or, best game of all time and stuff is that even if people don't align with what we, consider to be, like we had the one game that sold 17,000 copies in Japan. Like every time a game is released, it's going to be someone's favorite game. And that's one of my favorite things about gaming is that everybody loves something that they personally love. And so it's really cool to hear what you guys have to say about it. And of course, what a great way to celebrate 200. It's great.
Yeah. And like, we did have some overlap, but a lot of our top 20 were unique. And I think that speaks a lot to, what we value as gamers, like what really resonated with us, what is nostalgic. As you said, like gaming is a very powerful medium. There's so much that goes into it, from music to acting to performance capture, now to just like art and visuals, and just kind of the feeling of just having the thing in your hands and playing it and being it and becoming it. Games are special, and that's why we want to talk about them, and that's why we want to talk about them with our friends. We make new friendships through games, whether it's Destiny or World of Warcraft or Halo or whatever. And it's been an absolute joy to be with you for these 200 plus episodes, and here's to however many more. It's been an absolute honor starting this show with you, Chris, and then Josh having you join up, and then having the glorious return of Chris. And we've had other hosts in the past, and I wish them all the best. It's been a joy having you and all of our guests on, and it's a lot to run a show like this. I was actually talking to Ryan McCaffrey, who congratulated us on 200, because sticking with something like this is not easy, and editing all these shows and publishing all these shows and setting the time aside to record all of these shows is not easy. It is really fun though, and I'm really happy that I've been able to do it, and I am very happy that the show that we make here resonates with those of you out there who are listening or are watching on Twitch. It is pretty crazy to have started something and done it for so long. Chris, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I mean, you said it all. When we originally started doing this, I definitely don't think that this was, I always wanted to do something like this, but I didn't think I was going to end up doing it for as long as we have. I think, like, tongue in cheek, I was like, we'll see what happens. And like, we've managed, I love that we've managed to, like, remain friends through, even me going through everything that I went through, leaving and coming back. And it's been a good way to get this side of me out that I would otherwise have to subject Jess to.
Hashtag relatable.
Just like, hey, let me tell you all the thoughts I have about Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl. And she's like, shut the
She's
fuck
like,
up.
please don't.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's, it was the birthplace of, like, I think my, at least, career at IGN, your career at IGN, and I've met a lot of really amazing people through doing this, and just, like, staying consistent with it. And I can't say that about a lot of things in my life, that I did it for this long, and I've enjoyed it this much. Obviously I keep coming back, so I must be enjoying it. So no, I mean, I'm just really grateful for you guys, and, being able to continue to do this.
And to go from, to be perfectly honest, to go from acquaintances or like Destiny friends, in the case of me and Josh, to, like, true, like, I consider you guys to be, like, some of my absolute closest friends.
Yeah.
And to have that evolve, our relationship evolve through this show, has been awesome and has been a great privilege for me. Josh, do you have anything you want to say?
4 more years.
Attaboy.
No, it's been great, and I love you guys. I look forward to keep going.
Yeah.
Love you too, man. And you, Chris. And you know what? You get in on the group hug too, Sam.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah. I was getting ready to say, like, I'm so proud to have been a huge part of this show since the very beginning. In spirit, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, anytime.
And thank you, if you are listening or watching, thank you for joining us for episode 200 of The Platformers. We love making this show for you. So if you have enjoyed this, please share it with friends, family, anybody that you know that might be interested in this sort of a show. We don't advertise, so word of mouth is the only thing that we have to grow. If you want to hit us up on Twitter or other social media, you can find us all corporately at Platformers Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and Twitch, twitch.tv/platformerspod. And you can find me personally at Ribnax on Twitter, RIBNAX.
You can find me on Twitter at the Jawa Josh, and if you want to see all the cool video essay stuff I'm working on, you can go to youtube.com/mediaismythic. My latest video was called Universal's Frankenstein's Commentaries on Myth and Sin. Please watch it. Took a long time to make.
You can find me on Twitter at Shrives93. I will likely be tweeting about the stresses of doing all the things for a wedding over the next month. My wedding is in 32 days. I'm also starting a new job in the middle of all of that. So, yeah, you know, because I didn't have enough going on. Yeah, you can catch my weekend weirdness on IGN's social medias. I do all their weekend stuff, and that's all I got.
And you can find me, Sam Adams, on Twitter at JampackSam and on YouTube at JampackSam. And much to Brian's chagrin, I'm still going to be tweeting about Halo and random miscellaneous bullshit throughout the day. Yeah, but that's what I'm doing. And yeah, hope to be back sometime.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
Keep fighting the good fight on Twitter about Halo.
I will die on this hill. It is king of the hill. Yeah. I am lucky.
Tell people about this amazing little indie game called Halo Combat Evolved.
Hey, for the record,
nobody's heard about.
My pinned tweet is The Artful Escape. I will have that be known that is an indie game that is pinned on my profile. So
all right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If you want, you can watch us stream this live on twitch.tv/platformerspod. And you can check out the archive on YouTube at youtube.com/platformerspod. From everyone here at the Platformers, from over 200 episodes of history of this show, we hope that you have an incredible week. And stay safe out there, because until next time, we are out.
Bye.
Play Banjo-Kazooie.